Meeting to order. Some announcements before we get started. There are several openings on town boards and committees. You can see them on the town webpage on the volunteer tab. Notably, the Conservation Commission is looking for a fifth member. That's an important board with a lot of business before it. So if you have any interest, take that out. The Pentucket Regional School Committee's annual public hearing on the upcoming budget is on Tuesday, February 24th at 6 p.m. And finally, there's a Greenbelt event in cooperation with the American Farmland Trust and the Mass Farm Bureau. Planning for the future of your farm. That's Wednesday, March 4th at 6 p.m. It's being held at the Topsfield Fairgrounds, and they are asking people to register in advance. Item A, public comment. Does anybody online or present here wish to make a public comment? Okay, Ross, did you want to make a comment?
I do. So I have submitted a letter of resignation from the select board. And I've written out a letter that kind of explains what's going on in my thought process. So I'm just gonna read my letter out loud. Dear residents of West Newbury, I am writing to respectfully tender my resignation from the select board of West Newbury with an effective date of March 1, 2026. My reasoning for doing so is entirely personal. I have experienced a significant change in personal circumstances which render me unable to fulfill the staggering time investment required by the select board to meet the town's ever burgeoning needs. Prior to the select board, I had served primarily on the finance committee, and I had felt that I had at least a finger on the pulse of town business. Notwithstanding this ramp up, it was not without a sense of awe and wonderment that I navigated my first year on the select board. To some, town business looks to be a calm and orderly one, like the placid surface of an inlet. However, joining the select board for me was like donning goggles and a snorkel and looking under the surface to see a hidden, complex ecosystem. Some items of business are exciting and headline grabbing, but I found the large majority to be sobering. Abstruse issues requiring scrupulous analysis and decision-making where the benefits or liabilities are sometimes generations away. During my time, I had the pleasure of interacting with numerous members of town staff, and I was struck by their industriousness, integrity, and respective acumen, qualities in such remarkable excess as to rival any of my experiences in the private sector. I didn't write this letter to pander to my former colleagues, but I can't help but give credit where it is due. It was an honor and a privilege to serve with Wendy, Reed, and Chris Weil. I saw them volunteering immense portions of their personal time, not simply to check the boxes of their positions, but rather to proactively and ardently anticipate and stay abreast of issues. They were models for calm, thoughtful, deliberative, and collaborative leadership, and think tirelessly in terms of what is best for the town as a whole. It is my hope that the town's leadership will continue to be measured and thoughtful, to listen to the passions of the crowd, but remember that the loudest voices are still often but a portion of many competing interests in our community. It is the aggregation and balancing of these interests that is best for the town as a whole. I believe that to be in a democracy is to occasionally have things not go your way, and yet it is this ebb and flow between these differing interests that results in balance and sustainable progress. I would like to thank the voters that elected me to the select board and the friends and supporters I've made along the way. It is my hope to someday again contribute to the town in some capacity, but until then, I'll see you all around town.
Well, we're not supposed to respond, I'm done. So I'm gonna say it's been my sincere pleasure to have you on the board. And you've been a true gentleman the whole time and an asset to the board, and I hope you join us back at some point in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. So I guess you will release his letter publicly tomorrow so that residents are aware of watching the meeting.
Yes, we will, and we'll put that out in a news announcement. And the thank you, Ross. Really, that was extraordinary statement. Obviously, the bottom line on this is that there will be a vacancy on the board, and my assumption is that that would be placed on the May ballot. So the deadline to take out papers for that is March 13th. The deadline to return papers is March 16th. So obviously, it's in everybody's interest to get the word out as broadly as we can, as promptly as we can, of the pending vacancy. And that will allow people who may be considering a run, that'll place 2 seats on this spring's ballot.
And so people can take out papers before March 1st.
Yes, of course.
Then the vacancy has been announced.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ross. Moving on to item B, town manager updates.
I didn't put a whole lot specific in this week's packet, obviously with the focus on tonight's budget presentation. But I did take the kind of summary slides I handed out in hard copy to the board a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, and just made a couple of tweaks to make sure those reflected kind of the current status, or not status, but just kind of a punch list of what's active and what's taking up kind of the most time in terms of day to day. So I don't plan to go through these, but if you have questions on any of them, I'm happy to provide a snapshot of where things stand or what's next. The first sheet is some of the major projects and initiatives. I'll note that this is a combination of kind of projects and initiatives, as well as what we refer to as baseline. So some of the things like the, invasive species land stewards, or the, on one of the later slides, the summer rack budgeting. These are all kind of core baseline things, but in terms of, this present moment in time, I wanted to give the board and the public a kind of a good snapshot of what some of the major issues are. So we've got this slide, major projects and initiatives. All of these are continuing. None of these are new. And some of the baseline functions. On audit, we have received the financial statements, and Jenny and I are actually meeting with the auditor on Tuesday to review that together in person. And we expect the FY25 audit to be closed out in the near term. So we'll work with the auditor to get that scheduled for a select presentation. I don't want to put a date out there, but as soon as he's ready, is I think going to be great to get that done. This is a little bit later than prior years. The sole reason for that is the Essex Regional retirement took a while to close their books, and the audit can't close out until that's done. So we got our books closed in September, so we were well ahead of the game.
Can you fill us in on Page and the water?
Yeah, so we had, there was well, I think it's the same that we talked about last week. So there was a water.
Nothing's changed.
No, we have not heard from we haven't got a report yet from the adjuster in terms of what the estimated damages are. So I know that Rebecca and Brian have followed up with them this week to see when we can expect that.
So we may not file a claim depending on.
I think there's a strong probability that we'll file a claim. Yeah, because Jonathan Seymour had told me initially that there's some, what he referred to as cupping on the floor, which I don't really know what that is. But where it's a brand new floor, if there's any deterioration whatsoever, I think it would be, we want it to be just like it was last summer when it was redone. I think it's very likely to file a claim. Let's see.
Any other questions on these?
Let me just take a quick look at, the website conversion, unfortunately, I've been kind of a pinch point on that. Amanda and Rebecca have done tremendous amount of work. It's really in good shape, but I've got to find the time to review my pages, and between articles deadline last week and budget and capital, there's not been any time. So that's what I've got, unless there's questions or discussion on any of this.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, Let's see, now moving on to action items. Item A is a request for approval of 2 special event permits. The first is the Tales for the Trails on March 28th, done by ECTA. And that was in a separate packet. You both have that. I had gone through this application with the town clerk and sent a list of comments to the applicant, and I'm not sure they've all been addressed. Did you?
There were in a letter that's an attachment, not on the form itself.
Yeah.
The ones that I had asked for addressed, yeah.
I think the concern about restricting off-leash dogs remains. They just said that for time that they don't really have any authority to do that, and every year that's a conversation. I'm not sure how to address that. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Simply stated, they don't have the ability to turn people away.
Yeah,
It's a public property.
yeah. I see, I thought Deb, yeah, Deb's
Yeah,
not.
he's here.
I'm here. I would love to address that.
Can I just ask a question first?
Sure. Yeah.
Was there any pushback last year?
I think one man came and was told that he would be welcome after noon, but not right then. I think most anybody coming understands that it's a safety concern, and we post signs a couple days ahead of time saying that during the race we would like no unleashed dogs. I also would discourage anybody from parking down along the edge of the pond. So we put a volunteer there, and I wouldn't say there's been pushback. I think people understand that if we're doing an event there, sometimes that takes priority. This is between the people arrive at 9 and the race is over by 11. It's a pretty small window, and it's worked great for 3 years.
Okay, I mean, I don't think any of us have an objection to not having dogs off leash during that time. We're just concerned that you don't have the authority to turn people away. If anybody was to say, I will still come in, you can't stop them. So that's the thing that concerns us, that you don't have the authority to do it. So as long as you understand that,
Okay, we will prevail upon them with smiles and understanding, and I appeal to people's better nature, and generally we're well met, so I don't anticipate any problem. Unless you want to give us the authority, I don't know how to get around that.
yeah, we can't keep the authority. I mean, it's just, it could become an issue. I know there've been some altercation around unleashed dogs there, and I just would hate for somebody from ACTA to be put in a position of confronting somebody with a loose dog and them not, responding to your smiles and good nature. So in that event, I would just back down and just let them do what they need to do.
I guess we can just say you've been duly warned, and we would trust that you would manage your dog in this situation. I mean, our dog rules say that dogs should be leashed or under immediate voice control. We can remind them of that as well.
I think if that was to happen, I think your best bet is to call the animal control officer and let them deal with it, instead of a volunteer getting put in there. I hope it never happens, but
Right.
That's what concerns us about this particular response to the question. The other question I had on number 6, it says any proposed road closures, and it says no, just parking areas at Pipe State and Mill Pond. You're not closing the parking areas, right?
No, I mean, spectators and participants, of course, are going to be using the top parking lot. As I just mentioned, I would like that there not be cars parked along Mill Pond itself. And they do come up through the lower field, probably taking the connector trail, so they sort of go around the parking lot, but they will be using the Mill Pond driveway.
Okay. I think going forward, we're gonna have a new application. It's just helpful if you answer the question carefully so that we have the information we need. That response was confusing to me, so that's why I asked the question, but it sounds like it's all set. So what,
I think I think we can cover it safely and cordially.
anything else, Chris?
Nope.
Ross?
I don't think so. I just, the one thought that I had is that if you are encountering people with dogs, I mean, we're talking an issue of safety with the equestrians and the horses, right? If a dog were to get off and chase a horse or something, is that the primary concern with off-leash dogs?
Well, for this event, there won't be horses there. For this event, this is just leashed dogs, one dog leashed to one person,
Oh, okay, I missed.
times 60. Yeah,
Okay.
Most of the other events are equestrian. This is a
Gotcha.
particular one.
this is a canine event and sponsored by ECTA rather than the riding club. I get your confusion, Ross. I apply for both groups, and there
Yeah.
might be a hunt as well. So, but this is just dogs, and it's the 4th year we've done it, and everybody has loved it. Participants and ECTA. And I love the fact that it brings people into West Newbury to learn our trails and take advantage of it. ECTA works in 6 towns, and we were the most recent member to join ECTA. It's a great organization. They spend a lot of time and a lot of money building bridges and boardwalks and cutting brush. They did in Back of Page School. They do the Water Tower Trail and the trails in Riverbend. ECTA has been very good to us, and I think this is an important partnership.
Make a motion to approve the Trails for Tails application for Pipes Day on March 28th as submitted. With the clear understanding, you still need to get permission from Parks and Rec.
No, they don't need
They don't need it?
permission
No problem.
because they're not using no pond building.
I did notice that next week's Park and Rec meeting addresses the riding rings. And I know that we've been talking about potential reorganization of management of some town properties like Mill Pond and Riverbend, but this is a separate item, I think, from. Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Sorry, who was the second?
Ross.
Ross, great.
All right, thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is the annual plant sale put on by the West Newbury Garden Club. I don't think we have anybody on for that. My only question on this was the certificate of insurance did not include, did not name West Newbury. And I think Amanda said she was working on that. Did she provide you with anything in this?
I haven't talked to her about it today, but you could always take action subject to receipt of that. So I think this one's a little ways off.
Yeah. Would you have anything else on this?
Well, just the curiosity on the question, if they are, I think we should state clearly grandfather for the sign.
So there's a separate email requesting use of the sign.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
also in the application.
Yeah, it's called out separately, but
Okay.
yeah,
Is 2 weeks in advance typical, is my question? It's a long time to have. I don't know.
that's our sign policy. I mean, that's what they usually do.
Okay, so this has been a grandfather, I just didn't know what typical, okay.
So what's grandfathered is having the signage on the drain
Utilities.
field. Yeah, but the timing is the same as the other. Yeah, so, I mean, do you wanna make it contingent or do you wanna,
On the insurance certificate?
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty easy.
well, it's not because it's not correct in here, even after I printed it out, so.
I don't wanna visit it another time, I guess, okay?
All right,
Let's get the new form going, and if the new forms aren't complete, just reject them. Begin them. Make a motion to approve the West Newbury Garden Club annual plant sale. Special event application.
Second.
Pending. Insurance certificate naming West Newbury.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And then there's a separate a related request to, approve the use of the promotional banner on the training field from May 2nd to May 16th. And as Chris mentioned, they are grandfathered because they were using the training field for the sign before that select board policy was enacted. And a motion to acknowledge that, I guess we don't have to prove that.
Make a motion to, well, do you have to approve it or not? Make a motion to acknowledge that they can put up the sign 2 weeks in advance based on it being a grandfathered use.
It has been acted upon in
Yeah,
prior
okay.
years, yeah.
Okay,
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. The next item, how are we doing on time? All right. Next item is, a request for appointment to the Affordable Housing Trust. This is Mike Hoffman. He came to our meeting, our last meeting, and, so engaged and has some good input, so I think it's an addition. Questions or?
Yeah, comment too. First of all, I know Michael from the past life, I feel like he'd be great on this. Going forward, as we point people to committees, do we want to ask them if they're aware of what the charge of the committee is and if they're willing to promote that and abide by that? And we just kind of appoint people, and some of these committees have gone off on their own a little, and
Yeah.
it's almost impossible to rein them in. I'd rather get, not this much, but in the future, I'd rather have a commitment for people putting on committees that they can, as Rob would say, play within the rails.
Yeah, I think that when they get sworn in, there is a statement to that effect, but I think that's reasonable for us to ask the question.
Just to make sure that we're in charge of what these committees are, because some people think they're much broader and able to do more than they are charged with on the committees.
Yeah.
You know, we've felt that frustration all year long, I think.
It could be a checkbox maybe added to the form saying that you're reviewed and are you familiar with and the charge of the committee. Not every committee has a charge.
I know that.
But we have a booklet and we know which
It would
ones
be helpful
do.
to get those squared away.
It would, yeah,
So
there's not a lot of
drafted
apps,
a, board and committee handbook that Angus and I are reviewing, so, potentially we could work something into that as well. With a
Yeah,
appointment
yeah.
process.
Yeah, I just, to make them aware, I mean, and I'm not faulting the people, because I remember when I used to get on a volunteer committee, you pretty much think you can do whatever you want under the sun.
Mhm.
You don't realize that you're appointed by the select board to kind of move in sync with the select board's agendas, so. It can be confusing, so I think to have it pointed out would be helpful.
Yeah.
We'll make a motion to appoint Michael Hoffman to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Second.
So I assume he would be finishing the term of,
The,
it was Donna that was replacing.
so Max told me the term for this would be through June 30th of 2027, is
Okay,
that Donna's term?
Yep.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then finally, there's an updated special event application form before you. I went through all of this with the town clerk this week. And in addition to what's in here, we're also working on a checklist for internal review, just itemizing like all the things that need to be in there, like insurance certificate, name West Newbury, and police detail and all of that, so, and then she and I are gonna go over the applications that are already in hand and make sure they're complete before they get brought to the board. And move forward. So any comments on the application itself or on the FAQ or rules and regulations?
I like the wording that got revised that we discussed at the previous meeting on the second paragraph of the application
Yeah.
itself, and I think makes it very clear, we're not regulating anybody's private property.
Did you have any comments?
No.
The only, I mean, I can follow up with Amanda Hanks, but if you have it right there on that page you're on.
Yep.
Under additional requirements. Under the first sub bullet, I think we should specify athletic fields. I mean, this doesn't regulate just open fields, like I'd say. I think it's meant to be, athletic fields. You can just insert that.
Yes,
I can make a note and follow up.
I just jotted it down, I just gotta, do it correctly. Let's see.
A motion to accept the revised special events permit and the application is submitted with the modification to include athletic fields as noted by Wendy.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
So we do have some current applications on the old form that are already filled out. We're just gonna let those stand and go through them together, as I mentioned, and then going forward, people will fill out the new application. So hopefully this will become much smoother.
Will be rejected if they're not complete.
Yes, there used to be a provision here, if it was closer than 60 days before the event, you had to pay $100, but we're just not gonna be with it. Right. And right on time, 10 minutes early. And come. So Dennis, are any of your members zooming in or? No?
Not that I'm aware of. The agent just made it from his. Him always comes in at 6:01, so.
I'd like the board meeting background in the meantime, that's the.
Specific request. The tree committee, we have that. Killing trees just for your side. Well, you know, some people are worth killing trees.
That boy.
That was an ash tree that was already came down, okay?
Yeah, it's there for
$80,000 ash tree, they were kind of that.
Yeah, I texted you today.
I just know for those who came in, I know you got all this information by email, but Brian, there by the door, there's a bunch of hard copies of both tonight's agenda as well as the overall schedule for review of budgets. I'm not sure if anyone wants that in hard copy in front of you, but
Can you grab one for me, please?
Okay.
Thank you. I think that's the, yeah. 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 Yes. I run out with my car, sorry.
Be later than Jim then at the hospital. Yeah. These tonight. It's not.
It's not, it's so good there.
Yeah.
what's that?
I don't think we've added this project in the town work plan to the article request.
No.
We have to ask that question on specific ones.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't wanna get caught, I don't wanna get caught.
Yeah, no, the article, request went out well before the. So, that's. Obviously.
Parks and Rec was, got it on in time.
When we did add it to the DB, we added that. So.
No, special event, no, it was the motion in the second, I didn't.
I was less than Ross the seventh.
Got it.
Tough to keep up with the meeting and do the notes, huh?
And so, yeah, I got a lot of papers and everything tonight, more than normal, so. More paper and less plates than normal.
Yeah.
There's nothing cracked.
I'm gonna take it away from you. All right. Do we wait for Jim? Okay. Guys,
Hello, everybody.
Ah,
There's a parliamentarian.
okay.
I thought he was gonna be remote. Great, thanks, Jim.
Can we call the meeting to order?
Greetings from the great city of Chicago.
All right.
He looks like he's under the sun.
I know.
I'm sure he's not. Police station, big question.
All right, so Dennis, I think I heard you say call to order.
Yes.
6:01 PM.
We have meeting minutes to approve from several meetings. I circulated them. Everybody get a chance to look at those? Do we vote?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Put them on the cross.
Do they need to say which meeting or can they?
They're on the agenda, so
I just don't want any.
no, I think that's fine, but just for those who may not have the agenda in front of them, the draft minutes that FinCom has in front of them that were previously circulated to them are June 10th, 2025, July 8th, 2025, August 6th, 2025, August 28th, 2025, October 9th, 2025, October 16th, 2025, and November 3rd, 2025.
And all have been posted as draft meeting.
Yeah, once it was pointed out that they hadn't been posted, we did post them in draft. So now, once they're voted, I believe they were just voted, we'll just have the clerk's office remove draft and repost them.
Okay,
Need to start?
yes,
Okay, so the first item is a presentation of the proposed draft FY 26 operating budget.
And Jenny, if I could ask you to hand out hard copies of the budget package. Thank you. So this font is gonna be a little, I didn't actually look at it till
Thanks.
the printout till this afternoon, and it's a little small to read, but when I send it out by email, you'll be able to zoom in, and I can always, reprint this cover sheet at a better scale. So let's do a screen share. Initially, I just want to let people know that we did set up, as we do every year, there's links from the town manager department page on the website. You go to departments, town manager. If you see on the left, there's going to be a link to budget information. You click that, it's got several years, and so for FY 27, we posted the schedule. And just some of the base documents so far, the budget policy direction, the guidance packet that was sent out to boards, committees, and commissions and department heads back in December. The budget season calendar, which is kind of the big picture, you've seen all this, and the individual meeting review schedule, which is the one that's pictured here on the screen. So after tonight's meeting, I will be posting tonight's presentation along with the budget packet that I just handed out in hard copy. And as we go through the process, as there's changes or recommendations, that information will be posted here on the budget information page. And this is also linked to the finance committee page. So start with that. And now bear with me while I pull up my slides. I am going to present these in PDF format because in my experience with PowerPoint with the share screen, it can sometimes the people on Zoom don't see exactly what's here in the room. So Jim, is that coming through clearly on the screen share?
It does. I can see it very, very clearly.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This is, obviously a big day in the municipal calendar. So I will get started. So tonight I'll be presenting the proposed town manager budget. This is the town budget, not the water enterprise budget. The process for preparation of the budget was established many, many years ago in the town bylaws. This departmental budgets bylaw. When the town established the town manager form of government, they simply swapped out finance director with town manager. So it's really the same bylaw that's been in place for many, many years. Essentially, departments and boards, commissions, committees submit their proposed budgets to myself and the town accountant. We review those, and I'm charged with putting together an overall budget, which is what I'll be presenting tonight, that essentially takes direction from the policy direction that the select board voted back on, I think it was December 4th or 5th, which is essentially the kickoff of the budget cycle. I want to acknowledge there is some additional work that needs to happen between myself and Jenny and some of the departments, boards, commissions, committees. There are some revisions that I've incorporated in tonight's presentation that I have not had time to review with departments or boards, commissions, committees yet. So That's kind of how it goes, where it's very deadline driven, and to get to the board's bottom line target in terms of budget growth, I've got to make some adjustments. So I'll go through those. So under the Town Manager Act, the Select Board shall review the annual proposed budget prepared by the Town Manager and make changes as the board deems advisable. The Town Manager shall present the budget, which incorporates the changes of the board, to the Finance Committee and the Town Meeting. So tonight, the request is for the board to refer the proposed FY27 budget to the FinCom with or without changes that you may make. The referral does not equal board endorsement. Simply to get it formally in front of them, and then, as you know, with the process ahead, there are a lot of joint meetings, so that will allow the Select Board, concurrent with the FinCom, to go through each of the sections in detail with the department heads and BCC present. The version of the budget that the Finance Committee recommends is what is presented to town meeting. So if the Finance Committee recommends reducing or increasing a line, that's what goes to town meeting. It's not what I propose, and it's not what the board refers. It's Finance Committee's presentation to town meeting. This is the same as it's been for decades, but I always review this at the beginning of the presentation, just as an overview. So this next two slides is the FY27 budget policy direction. I'm well aware it's not at a scale that you can read, but this is something that was approved first week of it was December 4th. And this was sent around to the Finance Committee and the Select Board at that time. So I'm not going to review this in detail tonight. It's really here to make others aware that this document was voted about 2 months ago, and is essentially the guidance that the board provides to myself and Jenny, so that as we prepare the budget and the process, that we are doing so with an eye toward what the board wants us to how you'd like us to do it and what the end product you'd like to see. So in the past, I have kind of during my presentation summarized some of the key items. I'm happy to do that, but I do want to say I've got a lot to cover. So if you prefer me to just cut to the chase, I can do that. And you have the budget policy direction, so I think that might be better if you can just ask questions, or if there's something that you feel like, you know, I missed the mark, you can either bring that up tonight or in a future meeting. So the proposed budget, and I'm trying to make this legible. I've added a number of columns this year. This is a similar format to what you've seen in prior years, and you have this in front of you in hard copy. And as I said initially, this will be posted to the website first thing tomorrow. So this has for FY23, 24, and 25, it has actuals, not the budgeted numbers, what was actually expended from those lines. That's more than typically we do 2 actuals and prior year, but I added the extra for a little more historical context. The FY26 amended budget is that reflects there were a couple of lines that were changed at the fall town meeting. So this FY26 column reflects those budget amendments. And then we've got the FY27 department head / board commission committee. We've got the proposed amounts and the change from FY26. That's obviously the red numbers are negative numbers, and then it's got the percentage change. And then the next series of columns is the FY27 town manager proposed budget, which is what I'm going through tonight. The proposed numbers that I'm putting before you are in the bold face type, and also show the change for FY26 in both dollar amount and percentage. And then these columns to the right, I thought were a little bit interesting. What this does is it shows what does that change represent in terms of the total bottom line change in the budget. The first column says increase as percent of total increase. That includes schools, so that one really isn't very helpful because schools are obviously a huge share. So I added the other, which backs out the schools. It says increase as a percentage of total town increase. So the way to read that, for instance, is Let's just take, Board of Assessors, the proposed increase in their budget is, that I'm recommending is, an increase of $4,265. That's an increase of 2.4%. That, 4265, constitutes, 0.6% of the total budget increase and 1.9% of the town-only budget increase. So I thought those additional data would help kind of contextualize what's driving the change. So obviously, I understand you'll scrutinize all this stuff, and in the slides to come, I'll drill down on each of these sections of the budget a little bit further. So what this pop-up is at the bottom. Okay, here we go. No, so when I keyed in all of the department head and board commission committee proposed budgets, this pop-up was really annoying. It came to a proposed increase of just over $1 million. That's significantly higher than we've seen in prior years in terms of year to year. That would have been a 5.4% increase. With the adjustments I've made, it is a proposed 3.6% increase, or about $680,000. That includes education and town. So to distill this to a more manageable kind of set of numbers, and I really need to get rid of this pop-up. There we go. So under kind of Mass DOR standard accounting, everything is grouped in different categories: general government, public safety, education, public works, human services, culture and recreation, debt service, benefits, employee benefits, and total transfers. So everything I've rolled up to that much higher, less granular form. And what this shows is the FY26 amended, the FY27 department head, board, commission, committee, as well as the town manager proposed. And then the shading is basically what the darker color is a greater increase, and the lighter color is a lesser increase. So you can see what the town manager proposed is significantly less. I had to, there's about $350,000 less in my budget. That's not as dramatic as it sounds. I'll explain that later because of education, but those are the numbers. So you have a net increase of 3.6. The reason I say a net increase, as you know, we are now in the practice of drawing from school stabilization to offset the impact of the middle high school. We are also in the practice of drawdown from the pension liability stabilization based on the multi-year model that the town accountant put together with the prior chair of the finance committee. Those draws, which are proposed as articles, are incorporated into these numbers. So this is a net increase, not a gross increase. Same way I presented it last year, but it's important for everyone to understand that, because if we were not drawing from school stabilization, you would have a higher bottom line and you would have a higher percentage increase. So same way we've done it in the past, but I need to be totally transparent about that. So the largest drivers of the proposed budget increase, no surprise, education is the top. I added this line, town manager adjusted, and I'll tell you why. And this is why the change from 5.4 to 3.6 is not as kind of, I can't, there's a significant share of that I can't really take credit for. So Pentucket, when they sent their budget book, they said their intent is to recommend that the school committee find $825,000 out of their proposed budget to cut. So I used the number. So in the education budget, and the department had proposed, I included what is in their budget book. In the town manager proposed, I made that adjustment. That 825 is not a reduction for West Newbury, that's a reduction of the district as a whole. So West Newbury's reduction is a share of that, but that comprises a significant share of that reduction. So you can see for education, it's difference of
There
about
we go. Let me turn off.
about $210,000 less in my budget, and that's not because I'm suggesting we strike Pentucket's budget. That's because the superintendent, the business manager has said they are recommending an $825,000 reduction. So I think that's a more realistic number.
So what if they don't get that reduction?
Then it's gonna change the numbers quite a bit. I think they will. I mean, I really, they will. What's going on right now, I met with the superintendent and my counterparts in Groveland, Merrimack on Monday. What's going on right now is they're working out different scenarios, superintendent level, of what that $825,000 cut would look like in terms of the impact on services and or staffing. Obviously, that's a big number. There would need to be positions cut. So when they go before the school committee on February 24th for their hearing, they're gonna need to present what would be the impact of that $825,000. They're not able to say that now, so they put out the number they put out, but I'm very sure that, I mean, I don't know, but the school committee is fully expected to follow the superintendent's recommendation to find the money. The question is, where did they find it? And that number was selected for the reason of reducing the impact on the three towns, and particularly with Merrimack and Groveland. If the budget that's in the Pentucket budget book was brought forward, that would force both of those towns into an override posture with Prop 2.5. And the school does not want to do that because they don't believe it would pass. The way the Pentucket regional agreement is written is if 2 out of the 3 towns pass the budget, the third town, even if they vote against it, is stuck with it. That's a bad phrasing, but they gotta pay their share. So that 825 was selected by the superintendent with the specific intent to reduce one of those 2 towns below a threshold that the superintendent feels is more politically viable to actually get passed without an override. Does that make sense to everybody? So the education increase is offset by the proposed school stabilization draw. It is that's something that is a diminishing resource. So we are approaching the time when the full cost of the middle high school debt service will be borne by the tax base. But to this point, we are able to continue to draw from school stabilization. The retirement increase was I listed the largest drivers by dollar amount, not necessarily by percentage, or not by percentage. So the retirement was 41,500. The largest increases by dollar amount later in the budget, police at just under 50, DPW at about 36,000, 2.2% of its budget. Board of Health at about 33,500 or 4.8%. Employee health insurance at 24,500 or 4.4%. Library at about 22,000 or just under 5%, and council on aging at 21,000 or 16%. And I'll go through each section in a little more detail, but at a high level, those were the kind of biggest number increases.
And just to be clear, this is increase over this year's revised budget.
That is correct.
Not a go forward projection of what actuals are.
Correct. Yep. So these pie charts, I won't spend a lot of time on. When you can review it, it might be interesting, but just at a snapshot, obviously education is, is 53% of our budget. This gives you the percentages of each of those categories of government, public safety 12%, general government 8%, and so on and so forth. The next slide has the same pie chart, but this is with education omitted to give you a better snapshot of the town side and what's practically within our control.
Are the benefits only town employees, or do they include education employees?
Only town employees and retirees.
Okay.
Right. So in terms of the select board budget bottom line target, the board has set a target of a non-education increase for FY 27 no greater than 2.5%. So what I do to arrive at that is, we've got the total operating budget. So this FY 26 was 19.1 million. When you back out education, it was just over $9 million in FY 26. 2.5% of that non-education number is 225,620. So my marching orders were to keep the bottom line town budget increase to no more than $225,620. When I keyed in all of the department head and board commission committee proposals, there was a proposed increase relative to that maximum of 145,000. So in order for me to get to my numbers, I had to find about $145,000 of what had been submitted to me in order to meet your target. And I will say that if you look back at prior budget presentations, even though the board has been consistent at setting that 2.5% target, I have not been consistent at meeting it. I look back at the FY 26 budget proposal, we came in at like 2.9. I think prior to that, I don't think we've ever come in at 2.5. We always come in a bit higher because we say we just weren't able to do it. This year, I did it. I had to do some things that, might not survive the process, but I wanted to present to the board, this is what a 2.5% town increase would look like in terms of what I would recommend. So I said this before, I'll say it again, these amounts are net, so they include the proposed drop from stabilization. Obviously, those need to be approved as separate warrant articles. These numbers do account for the non-union COLA. I use 2%. I think that 2% is pretty thin, based on what we all know is going on with, inflation. So I think that's something that, as it does every year, will be a subject of focused discussion at a future meeting, but for purposes of initial proposed budget, I carried a 2% non-union COLA. The numbers do account for the agreed COLAs within the highway, police, and dispatch collective bargaining agreements. They do not carry non-COLA wage adjustments, i.e. step increases. And where my numbers have proposed any changes to staffing levels, that will be noted in my presentation tonight. They're modest, but I did carry a couple. So salary wage budgeting, obviously, major share of the town is just under half. It's 47% of the non-education operating budget is salary wage expenses. In the numbers in front of you, that's about 4.35 million, just up from 4.25 in the current fiscal year. Police and dispatch collective bargaining agreements are both in effect through next fiscal year. Highway collective bargaining agreement goes through FY 28. The only bargaining unit that does not have a settled contract is water, which doesn't have an impact on the operating budget. That's the enterprise budget. And where that is a newly established union and there's some filings and counter filings going on with the Mass Department of Labor Relations, there is no collective bargaining agreement yet in place for the water union. There are a couple of employment contracts with effects on FY 27 with terms not yet determined. That includes my contract as well as the police chief. For all open contracts, I have carried, and which is just those two, I've carried an assumed non-union COLA. If terms were agreed at greater cost, these would be added prior to town meeting adoption of the budget if the terms were agreed prior, timely. Or if terms were agreed after approval of the operating budget, that would have to be paid from unbudgeted personnel costs. The only new position proposed is the HR manager, which the select board had voted earlier this calendar year to direct the creation of a new human resources manager position within the town manager section of the budget. So we have created that position, we posted the job, and we're receiving applications as we speak. In order to offset that cost, I have struck from my proposed FY 27 budget, the programs and projects manager position. That is not in the numbers in front of you. I will talk a little more about that later. I would look to the board at a future meeting to establish the non-union COLA and consider any non-COLA changes, if any. And obviously, under the select town manager form of government, the board approval would be needed for any non-COLA changes. Before I keep going, any questions on anything so far? So part of the budget every year is a proposed org chart. So actually behind Gary over on the table is last year's org chart. This one is substantially similar. We update this every year with current staffing. So, you know, if you zoom in, you can actually see who's in the various positions. So it's kind of a nice little reference for those of you who, you know, just want to kind of, you know, see who works here, how it all fits together. This is organized based on appointment authority, not necessarily supervisory authority, but that seemed like a more logical way to do it. So, you know, select board appoints the town manager appoints department heads and other staff that, except as otherwise provided by law. Select board under the town manager act appoints the town accountant, appoints the police chief, and appoints all police officers. Select board appoints town council, so on and so forth. Board of Health appoints its staff. Library Board of Trustees appoints the library director, who part of her job responsibilities are to appoint the library staff. And the Park and Rec Commission appoints the seasonal laborers. The summer rec program, I'll put a dashed line there because that's a department head position. So I actually appoint the summer rec director. So, but you'll see here, I put just to highlight the change. It says changes made during FY 26 outlined in red. That's this human resources manager, which is currently vacant. And I put a X through the project manager position just to reflect that change. So now I've got a slide for each of the sections of government based on that Department of Revenue structure. The booklet that you have in front of you has much more detail. This has the lines just by department. What you have in front of you has the breakdown of, you know, salary, wages, expenses, and so forth. So for instance, like the DPW budget's got something like 17 lines in it. Those are all in the packet in front of you. I did not put that into the slides because there's, I think we can all agree there's enough numbers in here. So what I did, these next 7 or 8 slides basically just try to pick off at a high level some of the key dynamics. This is not everything that's going on within the budget, but I try to highlight those things that I thought were either the greatest impact in terms of dollars or just in terms of what I think people might be most interested in. So the town manager section of the budget, the increase there is primarily driven by this HR manager, which is now proposed at 40 hours, where the project manager had been in the budget for 32 hours. It's also a different grade and step, but than the project manager. The registrars, you'll see a notable increase in that budget of over $10,000. Obviously, it's a presidential election year, and so that's driven by the election activity. And those of you who've been part of this for a number of years know that there is some cyclical with the Board of Registrars where it's tied to the number of elections. The finance department is showing a reduction. That's really driven by the contracted cost for the audit. You'll recall last year at this time, we had gone out to bid for audit and we carried what turned out to be a conservative number in the budget. The actual contracted amount is less. So that's really what drives the decrease in the finance department budget. For the FinCom budget, I left the numbers the same. So this is something at a future meeting, you guys can really chew on that. I do think the expenses line that you carried seems to be very appropriate. It's not much, it's $4,000, but that's always been more than enough for the booklets and the modest expenses. But if one of you wanted to, for instance, go to a FinCom, you know, training or conference, obviously the town would pay your mileage. So like, if you look ahead and you think you need more expenses, you know, I just put this out there. as a starting point, but that's something, you guys should look at, and think about. Now, the bigger item in the FinCom, budget by far is the reserve fund. I carry the same 50,000 that it is in the current year. That is definitely something we're gonna wanna discuss as we go forward. You'll see later on, I'll circle back to this idea, but be aware, not just the FinCom, but those who are, watching this, meeting or this recording. The reserve fund is really what amounts to the contingency for the entire nearly $20 million budget. So $50,000 is not a big contingency. So it's always been more than enough. But the more we squeeze numbers, the more we are exposed in the event of unanticipated costs. So.
And you have how much we've drawn from that for the past couple of years?
Yes, not handy,
Yeah,
but
right,
yes,
right, right.
yeah.
Most years there are no draws from. And line item transfers is also a contingency and has worked very well because in the aggregate, we've turned back money every year on the order of $400,000, give or take.
Right.
So line item transfers work very well. The only problem is under Mass General Law, you cannot propose a line item transfer till the last 2 months of the fiscal year. So until May 1st, that is not an option available to us. Let's see, so. Yes, also within this general government, and this is a big one, this next one. So the budget I propose does propose a change to the staffing structure for the planning department. This is something my recommendation is the select board and the planning board schedule a joint meeting to review that. In a nutshell, right now, the staffing structure for the planning department carries a 28-hour-a-week town planner and 30% of the cost of the land and building services administrator, which is a full-time position that supports planning, conservation, inspectional services, and Community Preservation Act. Our town planner recently announced in the last 2 weeks or so, he is going to be leaving the town and after a pretty short tenure. And it's been basically very difficult, I would even say impossible, the last 4 or 5 years to both attract and retain, a talented individual for that position. We've had some good people who've left. We've had some hiring processes with very lean applicant pools, but a 28-hour position, my observation is that we get either a late career person or someone who's very green. But I think it's proven to be very difficult to either attract and or retain someone for a 28-hour position. So I only learned this news in the last, I think it was like last Monday, so 11 days ago. So I haven't had a lot of time to react to it in the budget. But what I'm proposing and what's reflected in the numbers here, and before I get there, so I thought of a couple of different scenarios. I thought maybe should we have a full-time town planner where you could get a bigger applicant pool and build into that position's responsibilities some of the project management capacity that we have lost. That idea to me has a lot of appeal. I am not proposing that here because there was no way I could do that while maintaining that 2.5% bottom line. I also think that if the town went in that direction of a full-time town planner with the explicit expectation that they're taking on some project management that's not planning per se, I do think there would need to be some very real clarification between my office, the select board, and the planning board as to the oversight of that position. Because for anyone who's watched, planning board meetings for the last 6 months, it shouldn't be any surprise that there is active, I guess, different points of view in terms of who the town planner reports to. So if the select board in my office, we're gonna stick our necks out and say, we're gonna get a full-time town planner with the expectation conveyed to taxpayers that we are going to get certain work done, it really needs to be clear that that position reports to the town manager. So that's a bigger discussion. So I didn't propose a full-time planner. Instead, I'm proposing in these numbers a planning coordinator, which is more of a quasi, professional, quasi administrative position. And that didn't come out of thin air, prior to the creation of the town planner position during Leah Zambernardi's tenure, before I got here, so it must have been 9 or 10 years ago. The town, the planning board for many, many years had a planning coordinator. And that position had, I believe, served the board's needs. So I've carried a 32-hour planning coordinator with the understanding that the land and building services administrator would no longer support planning and would instead take on responsibilities in affordable housing trust, where there's more and more work every month. And also, I think with the DPW business manager position, who is right now carrying an enormous amount of responsibility in a lot of different areas, there's some things that I think could be taken on by the land and building services administrator. So this warrants its whole own discussion, but I just wanted to preview that these numbers do carry a proposed change in staffing structure. With the change in personnel, that's always a good time to evaluate where we're at, where we want to go. It's not my decision to make, obviously, but it is my responsibility to bring forward a proposed budget, and that's what I'm doing with this proposal. So where you see this reduction of almost $26,000 in planning, that is what's behind that. And then also in this section of the budget, I did get a proposed budget from the Open Space Committee of just under $1,900. The nature of their proposals was for actual like things like, signs or, materials. So the way I look at this is if those are projects that the select board wants to see taken on, the money is not going to be the issue. We can find that amount of money in the public works budget, as long as we're clear right out of the gate and it's not late in the fiscal year. So it's more of a policy discussion to me than a budget discussion. But when you get all the backup with the proposed budget, you'll see exactly what they proposed, and you can chew on whether you want to restore that amount or not.
Can I just ask a question on the planning board? Does that reflect the reduction in hours from the land services?
Yes.
So that's part of that?
Correct. Yep. Public safety, let's see, so you can see the numbers here. This is, so police and dispatch reflect the collective bargaining terms. During FY26, the select board did authorize an increase in the hours for the police administrative assistant. That historically, including through FY26, has been budgeted at 32 hours. The board did authorize filling that position at 40. So I have built that into the numbers here. That position is still vacant. And this next this is a really important one that warrants a lot of discussion, is the fire staffing budget. I don't have the details here on the presentation, but if you turn to that page in your presentation, what you'll see is that the fire budget is broken up into fire wages, which is basically the call wages. This is on, the pages aren't numbered, but it's about halfway through. So the fire wages are basically everything from firefighters responding to calls, training, drills, that kind of thing. There's a separate line for administration, which is a stipend for the chief engineer. And then there's, those are really the two wage lines in the fire budget. So all of the call wages for training, drills, and response, that's an amount that in all of the years I've been here, we've simply applied the non-union COLA to that lump sum amount. Unlike every other section of the salary wage budget, which is underpinned by a kind of a detailed report on headcount and hours and rate, all of the salary wage numbers you see, there's like a specific math that arrives there. Other than fire wages, it's a lump sum and we've applied the COLA every year. And we've done that to be conservative and to make sure that there's never an instance that the fire, budget is constrained in terms of responding to incidents. But in looking at this year, and again, this 2.5% target really forced me to look creatively to get to that target. I was looking back at the, and should I look at the handout because the numbers are better. So the budgeted amounts have been well higher than the expended amounts. The expended amounts for fire wages starting in FY 23 and going forward, 57.7, 55.3, 98.1, and year to date we're at 54.6. The
Yes, you have to add the training and other in the first 2 years.
Oh, right. Oh,
We
right,
come
right.
up.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But still, if
You're right. Oh, yeah, yeah. No, good catch. Okay, so that's 80, 90. So it's been about 98.
yeah,
Yeah. So in the current approved budget, we're at 161.6.
I don't remember why that's so high. Do you remember why?
We just have applied the non-union COLA to that. Like if you find, I inherited the FY19 budget. If you apply the COLA each year, you will land to the dollar on what's in the FY26 budget. That is exactly how we've done it. We've never disaggregated it because it's such there's so many variables. It's a call department, unlike others in the region that have full-time fire.
You've got historical reference on what's been expended at this
We
point,
do.
so that's what you're gonna base this on.
Exactly. So I looked at those numbers and it seems like 115, which is what I proposed, is a more than sufficient number to cover FY27. However, and I've noted this here.
Based on history as opposed to that, other method. that-
Right. So that's where I've made this note here. This discussion relates directly to the whole idea of the Finance Committee reserve. Because if we're gonna get more, squeeze that budget a little bit. There's never gonna be an instance where the fire department is not gonna respond because they're out of money. That's simply never gonna happen. But we need to make sure that in the budget as a whole, we're carrying enough money that, let's say it is an extraordinary year and there's a disproportionate number of calls, and let's say they're on track to spend down their budget by, mid-April or May. We need to make sure that there's another fund to draw from, whether that's a line item transfer or a reserve fund transfer. So I think this proposal really requires some close review. I think it is sound from a financial management standpoint, or I wouldn't have put it out here, but it's a new idea. It's a different way than we've budgeted fire in the past. So we can put a detailed report together of what the budgeted and actual have been for fire wages, inclusive of, all the sublines, so that when we get to that in the budget review schedule, you have all that data. But it's a big proposal. It's a big change. Let's see. And then the animal control amount, we are in discussions with Newbury. As you know, we provide that service through a municipal agreement. We don't have an idea yet of what they're gonna, what we're gonna arrive at. So I carried 2.5%. That might end up being optimistic when you look at prior year changes, but with Prop 2.5, it seemed like a reasonable starting point. So that amounts to, a relatively small piece of the overall budget, but I just want to be clear that IMA is not yet, those terms aren't yet agreed. Education, all numbers are subject to change. The Pentucket budget reflects the intent, so you can see their number from the budget book is here. Their number from what we've received from the business manager in terms of how that 825 would allocate to the different communities in terms of reduction from what's in their budget book. That's this 10,540. which is a 4.5% increase, or no, this is for Pentucket, Whittier, and Essex Tech all rolled up together, so. It's a 4.2%, in Pentucket with the revised numbers. They came in at 6.3. It will be 4.2% with the 8.5 taken out. As you know, their public hearing to review the proposed budget is February 24th. Whittier hasn't yet proposed their FY27 budget, but the numbers here are based on advice from their business manager. Same with Essex Aggie. We received those numbers from them, from their business office. So, but those never get firmed up until later in the spring. And we also never know the actual enrollment really until October 1st. So that's why in the past, we've often had a placeholder article in the fall town meeting in case there ends up being more students at Essex Ag than there were. We have a projection from their business office of the number of students they expect to be there, which is 4, I believe. Is that right, Jenny?
I'm sorry.
I think it's 4 students at Essex Ag for next year.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what our numbers reflect.
Did Whittier not just hold the lottery?
Mhm.
So we should know that number too, right?
Yeah, they have a budget workshop on February 25th. But they actually don't have their budget hearing until it's like April 8th.
And the number of students we could have.
Yeah.
potentially, but I was-
Yeah, they did. They have their lottery. Public Works reflects their collective bargaining. One thing, in the department proposed budget for DPW, they did propose an increase in the snow and ice budget from 200,000 to 220. I did not carry that in my numbers. The reason being, that's if you increase, if your actual costs in snow and ice go above budget, there is, as you know, provision, Mass General Law to pay those costs and go to the voters in the spring for the snow and ice deficit. If you increase that amount, you could still do that, but let's say we went up to 220, and let's say next year was like a really mild winter and we only spent 140 and we wanted to reduce it. 2 years from now, if we reduced it back to 200 and we overspent, we could not use the snow and ice deficit. So it's a.
So we can, as long as we're not raising it on the recap, because we cover it with a free cash transfer. That's not really applying to us. It's only raising it on the recap.
Okay,
Okay, which we don't do.
Okay.
We cover it.
okay. So
Yes.
we'll do, we can do a report on the snow and ice actuals for the last several years. I didn't know that. I thought that was an absolute that you couldn't
No. it's only-
reduce it. Okay.
It's only to raise it.
Okay, so where our voters are actually appropriating the overage, we're allowed to do that even if we've reduced the budget amount.
Right.
But we couldn't just, in the finance office, just raise it without going to the voters, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's a good clarification.
But I mean, I agree with the concept, if you don't need to carry the potential excess in the budget. You know, there's no reason to, if you can just go to town meeting and get. I mean, people aren't gonna argue if DPW is removing snow and ice. you know,
Right,
they can
right.
say,
Yeah, so anyhow, but they did carry 20K increase, and, you know, so I did, they did. My proposed budget does carry a greater amount in overtime than what they had, presented to me.
Angus, before we move on, a question from my side. So if there is an overspending, could that also come out of the FinCom reserve fund, next fiscal year?
It could, but it wouldn't need to. I don't think you'd want it to, because that would,
We'll cover it this year.
yeah, no, right now, our year to date on snow and ice, is 331,000 against a budget of 200,000. Yeah, and that's through yesterday. I think these numbers are through yesterday, so this has been I think we all know.
Yeah.
Extraordinary, yeah.
Ordinary winter.
Need a GoFundMe page.
Let's see, Human Services, Culture and Recreation, some of the main drivers here are in Board of Health. They are projecting, increases in solid waste collection and disposal. That's currently out for bid. And they do know there's gonna be increases in the landfill monitoring costs, so that's a major part of what's driving their 33, or they came in at 41.5. So yeah, this next goal is pretty important, very important. Several budgets in this section proposed increases in either headcount, budgeted hours, position grade increases, and or step increases. That included health, council on aging, library, and recreation. The only changes in staffing that I'm carrying in my budget are a portion of what council on aging proposed and in recreation. So let me elaborate a little bit on those. Council on Aging carried a proposed new administrative position and a proposed increase in hours and step for one of the staff. I am carrying in my budget the increased hours for our nutrition coordinator from 27 to 32, but not the proposed increase in step. It's no reflection on performance of that employee who's outstanding by any measure. It's just based on, it's been the direction that we're not incorporating step increases at this time. So, but I am carrying the additional 5 hours. So that's something when we get to this budget, you can review that if you want to keep that in or not. As far as the part-time position, the idea there, our council on aging director, who's also phenomenal, has announced her retirement. She's retiring as of May 1st, and she has really elevated that department in a huge way in the 4 years she's been there. If she is willing, which I don't know, I think it could be helpful as we hire a new director to have some period of time where she can help with some things. So I have carried some funding in the budget, not for a full year, for a portion of the year. So that's something that the board will need to review and would need to approve. Then in recreation, their staffing budget is quite modest. They only, it just pays the seasonal staff. Their current year budget is just under $9,000. That's for the part-time laborers that basically care for the fields in the nicer weather. They have had to draw from their revolving fund for part of those costs last year because the actual use of those positions is greater than they had carried. I had thought about not including that increase, but on the recreation expenses side, I am proposing a very significant reduction in their expense line for FY27. The reason being, there's a park and rec revolving fund that's funded by field use fees. The commission a couple of years ago changed the fee structure. They're now generating $15,000 or $16,000 a year in field use revenue. And their expenditures in last year roughly matched what they brought in, but that included a couple of pretty big dollar projects of some new fencing at Cannon Park and some very significant improvements to the snack shack. The costs for those projects were about $14,500, and their total spending out of the revolving fund was $16,500, which tells me there's significant potential in their revolving fund to absorb more cost for expenses, which made me feel comfortable proposing a reduction in their expense line of $6,400 for next year. So we're gonna do all this in the budget reviews, but and then in library, they carried so in library, the select board during fiscal 26 had approved an increase in hours for one of their positions from 31 hours a week to 40 hours a week. My numbers do carry that increase. The Board of Library Trustees also proposed for a couple of part-time positions step increases. I have not carried those step increases for the same reason that I mentioned earlier. And just another reminder that any proposed changes to staffing and or salary wages require select board action. Debt service is always the best part of the budget, at least since 23. But just a reminder, this zero budget only reflects debt payable from the general fund. The town as a whole certainly does have debt. That includes the water debt payable from the enterprise fund. That is, you'll see that in the water budget. And obviously the town, bears a share of the school debt that's reflected in our educational assessment. So it's not like we have no debt, but in terms of the general fund, it's a good situation. Benefits and transfers, we've got the FY 27 rates for both the Teamsters health insurance as well as the town's Maya health insurance. We received confirmation earlier this week of a 4.01 percentage increase. That was very much on the low end of Maya as a system, which reflects our utilization. As we do every year, this budget does carry a contingency to account for both projected and unknown personnel changes. So for example, if one of our retiring employees, for instance, might be on a individual plan, the person we may hire might be on a family plan, and that's a cost out of about $16,000 per year. So we carry contingency for those both projected and unknown personnel changes that may happen during FY 27. Transfers, this carries the same 600,000 we've been transferring to stabilization for the last I think many years. And it also assumes the $200,000 transfer from school stabilization and the $53,775 from pension liability. So that's a net amount that you see in the proposed number.
Is it 200 from school?
165.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that's what's in the article.
okay. No, it's actually correct in my spreadsheet. 165?
Yes.
160. It's correct in here. It's incorrect on the slide, but it is correct in the,
In the map.
35 grand a month.
I'll fix that slide, but yeah, it is, if you look on the second to last page of your handout, it is 165 from school stabilization. Good, I'll fix that slide. Thank you. So the process, after the board referral, which presumably would be tonight, finance committee and select board has a number of joint meetings scheduled. That schedule has been posted and circulated. Those meetings will also include review of proposed warrant articles. I work with the chair of the FinCom to schedule the articles, in part based on readiness. So if there's things with moving parts, we tend to put those later in the process. In my proposed budget, it carries the numbers I'm proposing, as well as I'm always crystal clear of what I receive from department heads and boards, commissions, committees, with the specific intent that you all or members of the public can look and say, well, they proposed this and you proposed this, and why? I want those questions. That's what the budget process is for, because budgeting is inherently a process of managing scarcity. Budgeting, there isn't enough for everything you want to do. Anyone who runs a household knows that. So those trade-offs, those decisions, that's exactly what this process is designed to draw out. And so we very much welcome those questions and discussion. In the past, recommendations on different sections of the budget have been voted by FinCom and Select Board on a rolling basis, meaning if you're reviewing these 6 sections next week, you recommend those 6 sections. This year, I've had conversations with the chairs of both FinCom and Select Board, suggesting there may be a reason to do it a little different this year, and to look at those meetings as opportunity to kick the tires and really get full information and meet with the departments and all of that. But you may consider deferring your recommendations on the budget as a whole until you've completed all your budget review meetings. So we can talk about that tonight. But I think there might be some logic to that, as opposed to how we've done it in the past, which strikes me as a little piecemeal. And this would allow you to look more across budgets, like, hey, if we add here, we're gonna have to offset that there, and instead of this kind of very piecemeal approach. As always, there's a joint meeting with the board, moderator, town council, and FinCom, date TBD, and the deadline to post the warrants, Monday, April 13th. So questions and discussion? I do have some things on capital, but I've been talking for a while, so I'm just gonna stop.
Okay. You wanna talk about the idea of deferring voting on the budget until the end?
I have talked about it, but we haven't talked as a group. I'd like to throw it out to what you guys think about it. In the past, each department would be voted on pretty much, and then that would be an approved budget, and then we move on to another budget. I think the idea is that, we can review it and pretty much approve it, but subject to maybe the entire budget being within where we want it to be. Any thoughts?
Seems like I would say a more logical approach to consider everything when you do it that way. Why didn't we do that previously?
I mean, I can answer that. So when I started in 2018, and Gary will remember this because he was chair of the FinCom at the time, I bent over backwards to not change anything that I didn't need to change, because I was very attuned to the fact this is a new form of government. And I didn't wanna come in and just change things. And so we really did the same kind of process they had done previously. I would like to think it was better, it was presented better, it was organized better, and it was vetted better. But the same kind of process of reviewing these and then these and then these. So that's kind of, I remember meeting with Gary, the first summer I was here, we kind of scoped out the process, and I think it's worked well. And this is my 8th budget, and I've just kind of every year followed the same script. And it was this year, some conversations with Dennis and with Wendy, that I feel like it is kind of artificially segmented. And I also think, there's a perceived benefit, I think, for departments going early. And they feel like, oh, well, I'm all set, I don't need to pay attention anymore. And that's, I think, puts the FinCom and the select board in a kind of a tough spot, because if you get to a later budget and there's some increase, and you really ought to be able to look across the board. So it's a change in thinking.
Makes sense.
What do you think, Chris?
You start revisiting everything is the problem. I mean, as long as you do a tentative approval at that meeting, I mean, you still don't know what the target is at the end of the day. Like, you could get to the end and they start rejuggling everything if you're not careful.
Yeah.
I see it both ways. Maybe not a formal approval, but yes, we approve it tentatively based on the whole thing and they get to the end in case you do get in a jam. And I think this year is slightly different because, I'll flag the one that I think is gonna get the most attention is the planning board. And if that has to go back in after we approve the others, now you've got the problem you're trying to avoid. So. Maybe that's why kind of looking at a different perspective this year. Again, as long as we do a tentative approval each one. Be fine.
Well, I feel like because of how tightly, Ang's budget in order to meet the 2.5%, if we're gonna increase something in one place, we have to match that somewhere else.
That's what I'm saying, we know what the end's gotta be.
But I think you need to do that, in aggregate, you can't do it piecemeal for each meeting.
If I could offer though, the 2.5 is the target the board set. You're not bound to that. If you look at the last several budgets, the bottom line increase on the town side tends to be higher than that. And you may decide for very good reasons, or the FinCom may decide that, this is too lean and you wanna, come in at 2.8 or 2.9 or whatever. And it's gotta be made really, really clear. The increase on the town budget is not a direct correlation to the impact on the tax rate. As you know, there's a lot of other ingredients that go into the tax rate, including assessed values, new growth, non-tax revenue like fees and excise tax and so forth. So is it realistic that we'll have the tax recap model kind of ready for them to review in the next couple of weeks? I mean, I haven't started working on it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I could.
well, I'm not saying you.
Yeah.
I'm saying we.
Yeah.
We, so, as you know, we do this recap model, it's usually a little later in the process, but that's where we key in all the articles. You know, assumes assessed values, new growth and so forth, and that helps us translate what would this budget look like in terms of your tax rate. And that's when the cover letter of the FinCom booklet tends to estimate what this budget would impact your tax rate. So I try to meet the 2.5 because that was the target I was given, but you might be able to go above that and not crush people on taxes.
Yeah.
And there's the free cash draw, which you may do in the fall.
Right.
So let's say you go 100 grand above 2.5%, but you say, okay, in the fall, we'll draw 100 grand from free cash. You've just met your 2.5%.
I just feel like we set a target, we should meet it. You know, and then beyond that, if we approve a higher COLA, that's gonna push it to the top, then, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so I think we should try to meet that. Ross, did you have any thoughts about, you know, approving the budget as we go versus just waiting until the end?
No.
Okay. It seems like the consensus, do you have any thoughts, Gary, since you were part of the original?
I'm not interested in any way of saying that because something was done a certain way in the past, needs to be done a certain way in the future. My only concern is if we have meetings with, you know, department heads or people in the budget, and we give them like the idea that they have tentative approval, and then we change things at the end, it could create some hard feelings or frustration in terms of them trying to do their job. So, you know, again, we don't need to do it the way we've always done it, because that's, you know, not necessary, but these guys can come in and feel like, you know, this is all set, and then it's not all set, and they're sort of like, you know, why are we meeting if it doesn't have any meat, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like you should vote once, and it should come. But that's my only concern, but I don't, you know, we don't have to do it the way we've always done it.
So I guess it would be incumbent on us to make a decision internally based on what we hear and then discuss it at that time.
Right, and I mean, you know, the notion of like keeping the bottom line in mind is, you know, incredibly logical. It makes sense for, you know, people who are not struggling with tariffs and inflationary impacts. And we should consider that when we budget as a community.
Okay. Do we need to decide tonight or can we?
What, you know, in my experience in business, I mean, that's kind of like the process, you know? You go in, you do a budget review, you don't get a final okay until the process is done.
Well, I'm, if there's one, okay, but I mean, you know, you would say, we say, well, we're gonna approve this, but we're gonna approve it for real. You know, at the end, so maybe we just eliminate the, you know, partial or tentative approval and just save it to the end. I think that'd be more, you know, would be more fair to people who come forward, and present their numbers. But again, just because I said that doesn't mean that's the way.
Yeah, I think if it's presented to the folks presenting their budgets, then it can be, you know, we're gonna present our budgets tonight, we're gonna go review it, but we're not gonna make a vote or recommendation until we see the whole thing and how it ties together. I think it creates cohesion for the town. I think it makes the departments really come together, so.
I think my takeaway from what these comments is something that I also believe very strongly, which is that people shouldn't be surprised, departments or boards, commissions, they shouldn't think it's one way, and then like the day after a meeting that they didn't think they were gonna be discussed, they come in the next day and say, wait, what do you mean? So I think that falls on me in my office to make sure the departments and the budget proponents understand the process and understand that even if this schedule says their budget is a focus on such and such date, that you know, if the overall budget's not gonna be recommended until late in the process, that everyone knows that. So they know they need to keep an eye on the process, so I think it comes down to communication. And that actually my very first budget, I had the former library director, Sue Babb, prior to retiring, she had met with me and said, oh, in the last budget before I started, I thought our budget was approved, and then there was some meeting and it was like changed, and she had a lot of hard feelings about it. I said, that's not gonna happen. I will make sure if your budget's gonna be discussed, you will know, but I've done that every year, make sure the departments know. So, and we follow this piecemeal process, so if we are gonna do it a little different, as long as we communicate that, I think I think it's more reasonable to do it universally. When you're looking at the big picture, but I do also understand that that could be destabilizing to departments who wanna just know, like, am I good or not? So.
I think, logistics wise, if we're gonna have a final meeting and talk about all the budgets, we probably will wanna limit comments from departments and boards and committees, because then that will go on forever. I guess that's what you're saying, 2 meetings, right? 2 discussions.
Yeah, and the problem would be if you do have a budget that gets cut, they're gonna wanna have input at that point.
But they already gave input when they discussed it, the question's not their budget, it's how do we fit the whole town
I
budget.
know.
Why are you laughing?
Because you say that they will wanna have the discussion, I know, you know, it too,
So
everybody.
that's up to the chairs to say, we're not having input from the public tonight.
Keep your little wood melody.
All right, well, I guess we can talk about details, but it sounds like generally your consensus.
I think everybody's in favor of that.
Yeah.
So I do have on, this next meeting on Tuesday, it's omnibus budget recap, questions specific and the department reviews. This is the first time that in the first meeting after the budget presentation, we put overall budget, because I wanted, first of all, what you have is very summary of these slides. What you have here is more detail. What I'm gonna be sending to you in the next couple of days, hopefully by the end of Saturday, is my narratives to go with this, because I've thrown a lot of information at you verbally. I'm not pretending that you absorbed or remember all that. So you can expect to receive in the next 2 days, or I hope by the end of Saturday, more of like a narrative budget that outlines everything I've summarized tonight. So I think by Tuesday, you'll have absorbed this, and you'll, I'm sure, come in on Tuesday with a lot of questions. And I wanted to make sure we had that on Tuesday's agenda, not just jump right to the first department and like, I wanted to give you guys time to digest this, because I recognize there's a lot in here.
Are we ready to move on to the capital improvements?
Yeah, I'd like to make one comment, Wendy and Angus and everybody. I'm sorry. First of all, I just want to say that I'm in favor of trying the new process. I think let's learn from it, and we could see whether it's the right move for future years as well. The only thing that I want to add that's really, I think, kind of important is that meeting that we're going to be doing all this voting, it's really important that then we're all there. It's like, we have to kind of make every effort to be there, because that's going to be an incredibly important meeting, right? It's like we're going to be voting basically on everything. So I just kind of want to make that comment or that point, because that is a departure, and just I think that's really important, that attendance is going to be critical in that specific meeting.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, Jim, I forgot you were lurking.
No worries. Still here listening. All ears.
Right, so move on to capital.
All right, great. So I will, this is much briefer, so let's see, so capital improvements planning. The FinCom's met to review the 13 FY 27 capital articles, and has been meeting with the article sponsors. Most of those meetings have taken place. I understand there's a meeting with water coming up next Tuesday, I believe. So that's been ongoing. That process will go forward concurrent with the FinCom reviews. We have some of the capital articles are penciled in for next Tuesday's agenda. As I said earlier, my proposed budget carries the same transfer of 600,000 that we've done in the past. The report on capital articles is honored by March 16th, so that's a couple of weeks earlier than the process as a whole ends. The stabilization balance plus the capital stabilization balance, taking into account the expenditures approved at the fall special town meeting, about 2.1 million. let's see, Community Compact recommends free cash at 5% of operating budget. That would be about 990,000. If you apply that to full budget, not just town, it's much less if you look just at town. And 15% is the recommended for stabilization. Their recommendation does account for other stabilization, not just capital. And so Jenny and I talked it over this winter before the warrant closed, because normally we have proposed at the Springtown meeting transfers from this fund to that fund or this fund to that fund with the intent of arriving at these amounts for free cash. Typically that's involved drawing down free cash to put it into capital stabilization or drawing down stabilization to put it into capital stabilization. We talked it through in the winter. We both agreed it made a lot more sense to do those transfers in the fall town meeting, because at that point, what you do at the spring is known. Whereas if we did them this spring, it's like, well, if this one doesn't pass, we got to change that amount on the fly to hit that 5%. So this, I put together the same table I've done in the past. This shows the balances. These do, for the FY25, these do reflect the amounts that were voted at the fall town meeting. So this just is a much more granular detail on free cash, stabilization, capital stabilization, water retained earnings, water stabilization, and school stabilization. And then I put the subtotal of on kind of the general fund side of what's generally available for not just capital, but other stabilization needs, about 3.6 million, and water plus water retained earnings is about 1.1 million. And I included down below some of the other account balances that I haven't typically included in this chart because they're not, you know, they're not things you use to buy fire trucks. So pension liability, OPEB, and then the 4 CPA accounts. And then this shows the balance trends over time. Some have gone up, some have gone down. Some of those that have gone down is because of those transfers of putting them into other accounts. So it's important to look at it in the aggregate. This graph does not show the balance in capital stabilization. There's probably, if you look closely, there might be like a data point, but it didn't show up. I just finished this up this afternoon, so I might have to tweak it a little bit, but so this line chart that you have in front of you understates a little bit the balance because this capital stabilization was just established in the last year was the first time we put any money into it. So, and then actually, I'm gonna go to a different screen. All right, so you've all seen the ClearGov platform. What I've got here is the next 6 years. You all have the FY27 proposals in the FinCom packet from a couple of weeks ago. That's got the 13 proposals with the 1,016,000. The 6-year capital program is in ClearGov. I need to build this into more of a report that I can email around, but this is what shows all of the departments over the next 6 years. And some of these in the out years are not, those are going to change. They're not gonna happen that way, but they haven't been spaced out properly yet, especially in the out years. I think the next couple of years are more realistic, but I'll come back to that. So this includes every project and what comprises those numbers. And for each one of those, it's you know, there's a project summary with more details, and a lot of times these project summaries have attachments if there's quotes that have been received or that kind of thing. The trick I'm having with this ClearGov, I really like the platform, but I'm really having a hard time getting it exported to something that you can like email around. And you know, with the staff person who helps me with this has been out number of days, so that's limited the amount of time that we've had to collaborate on this, but the data is all in here, so I just need to, export it so you can kind of look at it more closely. But I do wanna go back to the other slide. Let's see. If we're gonna- As I look at the capital program as a whole, I think the biggest questions that I see as outstanding items that really need a lot of focus by the community. Obviously, Page School is a major one. A lot of the biggest numbers in the capital program are coming from the Gianap report. That's the architectural firm that that completed the conditions assessment that was presented last spring. The Gianap report includes, in the scenario that we stay in Page School for the long term, it includes all of the work that would be needed to bring that building into compliance with all current codes. There's building code, energy code, accessibility, and like structural, like seismic. Those costs get into the tens of millions of dollars. I have built those into the capital program because it didn't seem appropriate not to show them because they're there in a report we've received. I think it's fair to say that collectively, we don't have any expectation that we are going to be bringing the Page School into compliance with modern energy codes. The practicality of that is all but infeasible, but we did have the architects look at it. We do have costs for each of those things. We have individual projects that are in the 8 figures. I don't think this is gonna happen, but I did take the time to build those all in because like I said, it didn't seem defensible not to. We have this report saying this is what's ahead of us if we stay here for the next 25 years, so it didn't seem appropriate to have a capital program that didn't reconcile with that report. So that results in some pretty eye-popping numbers on the Page School. So as I hope I know everybody knows, the decision's been made to file a statement of interest with the Mass School Building Authority. That's due April, I believe, 17th. We've had a number of meetings with Jonathan Seymour and his team at Pentucket and with those on the town side, which is really myself, the DPW business manager and our facilities manager, and with Gianap. And we're working toward the statement of interest. That is the critical path for Page School. What's going to be the future? And if the future is staying there for the long term, these numbers in the capital program will help people understand what is ahead. And if it's a different path, whether that's new school on the same site or new school on a different site, that's something that I think having the capital program include those is important. So Page School is a huge variable on the capital program as a whole, and the numbers do end up becoming really stunning. They were when we got the report last spring, but when you put them in the context of the town as a whole, it's that much more, really stands out. Water is quite different in the details, but a similar basic dynamic. Enormous deferred maintenance, enormous future capital costs, particularly on replacement of water mains that were largely funded by the federal government in the New Deal era. So there's a huge backlog of water capital needs. Those of you who are on the water system can feel the impact you've seen on your rates because of the Church and Prospect. That's just one project. There's 20 more like that, that over the next 20 to 30 years would be needed. How that's all going to be paid for, it shouldn't surprise anyone to know there is no specific financial plan of how that's going to be paid for. This is something we've been talking to the Water Commission about for a lot longer than I've been here, but a lot of discussions, a lot of meetings on that. They have put forward an article that you saw in the packet. They are looking to engage engineering firms to do a water system master plan, which would include a financial plan and a capital plan. But that's one of the major outstanding capital questions is how is the water system gonna be paid for and how are the capital needs gonna be handled? This third one, the ladder truck, this is a major item. I mean, not when you look at page and water, it's actually a drop in the bucket. But it's a major item. It's $1 million in the capital program. The true cost, Chief Dwyer had indicated when we met is, I think, significantly more than that, but it's in the capital program for $1 million. He's told us he doesn't feel when the time comes that they are gonna propose to replace the ladder truck. That's not like a firm opinion, but I think if we can get that clear with the Board of Fire Engineers, if we can get just a broad consensus that we're not going to do a ladder truck, that's $1 million that'll fall right out of the capital program. So I think, one of the things, when I inherited the capital program, I took everything that was in there and then we've added to that things. We really haven't taken anything out because that's not my call to make, that's the community's call. So I think if we can look at some of these and say, we're just not ever gonna do that, let's just take those out. We just need people to understand that those choices were made intentionally and not that we've forgotten about it. But that if we can make a decision, we're not gonna do a ladder truck, that's $1 million out of the capital program.
And his latest estimate was more like $1.5 million.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Could we collaborate with Groveland or Newburyport?
Well, that's-
We've got stations that are,
That's where you
within
find-
5 miles.
That's exactly the idea, right? I mean, we benefit from and contribute to mutual aid.
Right.
We help our neighbors, our neighbors help us, and that's how it goes. And we only have one building in town that needs the ladder truck, and that's the Page School. So if there was ever,
Only reason.
Go wrong without a ladder.
well, if there was ever, if there ever was an incident, first of all, it's a sprinkler building, so that's good. But if there was ever an incident that required a ladder truck,
As long as someone was inside.
that's when your mutual aid comes into play. So.
And if potentially we relocate the Page School, we wouldn't wanna buy a ladder truck for a building that we're not.
Right, although if it's if it ended up being a private building, with, that was renovated for, apartments or condos or something, it might still need the ladder truck, but that's where we need to think regionally on some of these issues. The next item is a little interesting. I haven't really talked to Jenny. I'd love her thoughts, not necessarily right now. I don't want to put you on the spot, but whether and when to consider financing capital asset purchases rather than paying cash. When we're doing something like the water main, we go for borrowing and we do that because it was almost $3 million. A lot of, as I look at the capital program, a lot of the costs are 130, 240, the big amounts, but not anything we would go to Hilltop Securities and borrow. We're not gonna borrow like bonds, $250,000. You don't do that. It's not nearly enough money to justify all of the costs and overhead associated with borrowing. Yet, what that means is we're paying cash for all of our assets. And so right now we have no general fund debt. If we did amortize some of these in a way where we were adding to our operating budget on debt, but spreading the cost over multiple years of taxpayers instead of swallowing, like for FY 27, we proposed just over $1 million of capital projects. I think we really need to think about, is there a time that we finance some of these? I know up in Maine, we would finance vehicles over 5 years or 7 years, just like you might as if you buy your car. You're paying interest, so you're paying more. But it's something, so I'm not saying it's the right answer, but I think we need to talk about it. Because it seems to me first of all, we're absorbing a lot of big ticket items in a single tax year instead of, and secondly, we're not spreading that cost out over all of the years of taxpayers who are benefiting from that asset. So I don't know what the mechanics of that look like because I don't know if you get like borrowing authorization for $3 million to buy,
That's what you do.
and then
You bundle.
you
Yeah.
bundle it and then you borrow against that.
Yeah.
So you essentially have a line of credit.
No, you'd go,
Well, from town meeting,
Oh,
like
I'm sorry.
if they authorize you to
yeah,
borrow up to $2.5 million.
I think That's beyond me, I don't really know how that would.
But you don't borrow the 3 million.
No, you wouldn't borrow.
You do like individual leases?
I think it's one borrowing so that you
One
get a better
borrowing
rate,
authorization.
yeah, authorization and bond, so that's how you do it, and then you,
But I don't think you'd wanna actually borrow and start incurring interest until you.
no, you would have to have ready projects of a certain dollar value to make it worth going out to bond, so. And that gets more favorable rates and all of that, but you'd have to have ready projects,
Okay,
because it's one borrowing.
So you couldn't do like lease a vehicle, like a police vehicle? or
You
anything?
could, that's something different, but.
Yep, you
I
could
mean,
do that.
Leasing, yeah.
so I know, for instance, back around 2000, the town did a land bond
Mhm.
of what, $5 million. You didn't spend that all at once. You got a single borrowing authorization, and then it was, I mean, line of credit isn't the exact technical term, but it basically was like a line of credit. Town meeting had authorized 5 million and you drew against that. So I don't know how the mechanics work. We can talk to Hilltop.
Yes, yeah.
There's our borrowing advisor. It struck me every year, like, we're paying cash.
Well, that's why we
That's-
did the bands for so long,
Right,
until we had enough.
right,
um, So,
right.
I
yeah,
thought we talked about this last year when we buying one of the fire trucks, was it? Or-
Mm.
Which was 200 or something like that.
Mhm.
We did talk about when do you hit the threshold, when do you do it, so.
Yeah.
It's a good conversation to have.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, it's something we need to be thinking about, because some of the, going back to that other tab with the big numbers. That's a lot, if we're having to capitalize our stabilization fund enough to have, say, $3 million in year 4, we're gonna be putting a lot into there at the expense of the taxpayers in the next 3 years to buy an asset that might have a 15-year useful life. So I think there's a better way to spread the costs over, multiple years. You are paying more in interest, that's the downside. So it's something to think about, and then that all ties into this determining the appropriate amount for transfers from the operating budget each year. What's that level amount that's gonna get you where, so you have what you need every year? And I think if we don't look at that in sync with potentially financing things, it ends up being a big number, bigger than 600,000. So it's we'll refer it to our finance team. So that's what I have for capital. My main follow-up on this is to take the content on the ClearGov, which there's just a tremendous amount in there, and export it. And it does allow you to, there's a reporting function where I can export everything in 1-page summaries. Like, I can export all of the data. So I just need to figure out which of these reports is gonna be a combination of all the detail, but something that's cohesive. But with this group, you probably, if I just export it all, that's probably what
You got a quick flash, that $162 million number, up there, my heart jumps in.
Yeah, and that's not, I mean, it's a real number because everything's,
I know, but.
but
It's
when
not.
you add up, water is 35 million and there, yeah, there's a lot of things in there that probably will never happen.
Every time you jump a page, that 162 flashes.
So how has the process been for capital review for FinCom? This is new, right? Seem manageable and.
Yeah, I mean, I did a couple meetings. I think it was last week, maybe it was the week before. And very informative, something very helpful, and need some information back from page school with those and what the numbers are there. So I think Brian and Jonathan are gonna get us that info.
I think it helps getting out and, talking to people and seeing what the thing is that they're proposing, and, you get a good back and forth, asking questions why they need it, why they want it, and the urgency involved in it, so.
Okay, what's next? Angus, warrant articles?
Warrant articles, yep. And if this proves too ambitious, we don't get through all of them, that's fine, but we did try to put tonight pretty routine recurring articles.
So let's start with the school stabilization fund.
Yep. So the backup to that article request, and let me just do a screen share. Basically shows the 200,000 that was transferred for 26, the recommended 165 for this year, which would leave 125 for fiscal 28. At which point it would be pretty well drawn down. I'm sure that won't be down to the penny in 28. Yeah.
Did we put money into it last year too? We talked about that.
We talked about, I don't think did we?
We did not, it was, passed over.
Because this was intentionally done for the high school, middle school project.
That's right.
We've been discussing based on Page and Whittier.
Yeah.
To call this encompass all the schools, not just that project.
Yeah.
At some point, we're just started thinking about putting money back into it too,
We do.
which worked out pretty nicely on the high school, middle school.
It did, but they started how many years before? It was not quite a decade, but it was.
Went along from well established when you and I started.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
Yeah,
So how much did you put in every year? Was it a flat amount?
I don't
It was
remember,
based on
but
when debt was expired. You expired, they got roll it, roll in, so you kept the same every year, but it went into this fund.
I have a model I can send around, that shows the model that Joe Anderson had the first year, because it was very specific.
and it made the transition into the much easier than the other towns had.
Yeah.
They just took it all. you
Yeah.
know, And Merrimack has a library and police station, they got a lot going.
And, Chris, you mentioned expiring debt, Jenny, you took that into account in putting this together.
Correct.
So do you wanna maybe point to what you're, in terms of the debt that's falling off for Pentucket?
Yeah, you can see the QECB, for it's almost drawn down in 2029, there's the small amount left, and then in 2030, it's gone. And then there were some, green, what's it called, a green something?
Yeah, the green building repair.
Yeah, I think those
I
are
think
coming
that
up.
was the windows.
You have to scroll over. See, so it's the heating system and the grounds or something, those fall off completely, in 2030 as well.
So this here at the bottom, this line, the principal and interest is the total Pentucket debt that West Newbury will be absorbing. So you can see with the draw that Jenny has recommended, she, just to be clear, she put together this model. Basically, it shows a pretty modest increase, 2% for 27, 2% for 28, 1.8% for 29. And then in the natural course of things, it actually falls off a little bit from 1.48 to 1.41 in FY30, just because of expiring debt. Fairly genius.
We'll be into other projects by then.
What's that?
We'll be into other projects by then, which will
Right,
change all those dynamics, but yes,
yeah.
it's a nice level funded process, pretty close.
Yeah, so at what point would we consider whether we want to put more money into school stabilization, 2028 or?
Things sooner than later.
Yeah.
It could be in the fall town meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this whole 5% of free cash, I think is very conservative. I've never found something from DOR that says, is that 5% of the total budget or the town side of the budget? Because that's a huge difference.
And it's a huge difference.
That's how I arrive at that, like rough 900 and some odd thousand. If we look at a recommended free cash balance of 5% of your town budget, that's more than half. you could put that right into school stabilization. And same with your general stabilization as opposed to capital. If both of those were down at like 500,000. Which in this community, people will like be horrified because they're so used to seeing 1.8 million in free cash. Well, but you're sitting on money, like put it into a school stabilization. And use it, like you're sitting on money year after year, you're getting a lot of investment income. But you're tying up a lot of money.
Well, we know schools are gonna be dinging us pretty good coming forward, so you gotta start preparing for that. I mean, we all know something is gonna happen at Page. And where you and I know, being on the committee, Whittier is gonna be doing something significant coming up too. Now, we're the smallest community, but it's still gonna be a pretty significant increase.
The prior project was on the order of 550 to 600,000 a year of debt service just for West Newbury for the lead project.
That was at 460 million, hopefully we're back.
So maybe fall, now maybe we should.
I think that's exactly right, because that's when you'll know what's approved, you'll know what your post-town meeting balances are. And I think the whole idea should be to sweep everything above what you need in free cash and general stabilization into either capital stabilization or school stabilization. And also, this unrelated, but you know, if you do end up going with an increase in the contribution for retiree health insurance, that's gonna affect what you need to put into OPEB stabilization.
Okay. So, any other discussion on this one? Are you ready to vote or?
I think we're ready to go.
Okay.
What's that leave us with the balance in the account, 125?
Oh, I did make, I did make hard copies of the scorecard. If you guys wanna. Pass it around.
First, if we can, make a motion that we endorse, is it endorsement or approving it, right?
Endorse.
Support.
Support, transferring $165,000 to the school stabilization fund for article number 3.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
We have a motion? Our motion guy is remote.
Uh-oh.
Can he do it or not?
Anybody can do it.
So I'll make a motion that we support. Is that the right word?
I think I'm being told endorse.
I think endorse is a good word, you're not approving it.
Endorse the $165,000 amount for the school stabilization transfer or offset.
Second. All in favor?
I,
I'm sorry, who was the second?
I did.
Right.
All opposed, none. Okay. Rationale? I'll write that one.
No sunset, right?
Nope.
Okay, Article 4, pension stabilization drawdown.
This is also the multi-year model that Jenny and Rob Phillips put a lot of time on. And, this is where we're drawing this number and also the separate one on the water recommendation. So the draw and the addition is right from here. For people who haven't seen this, do you want Jenny to walk you through it or do you not?
I guess I have just a question on why do we have unfunded pensions?
That's fair.
That's a good question.
Sorry, I'm not missing the context here, so.
I mean, it's
I think it's
basically.
a high level version.
I mean, I'll take a crack at, but Jenny knows this a lot better than I do, but I think it's that, you know, the states put together public pension plans that it never budgeted for how to pay for them. So, I mean, you may remember, it was more than a decade ago, I remember Deval Patrick was proposing increasing the vesting from 10 to 20, and that like went nowhere. You know, but you get a certain level of vesting after 10 years, so it's a more generous pension than anyone ever calculated what it was gonna cost.
It's not uncommon either, that these pension funds are unfunded, yeah, it's a huge problem for.
Yeah. Anything to add to that?
Just the last meeting that I was at, they're talking about, once they are fully funded, to continue that so that there's actually, additional money in there, so they're overfunded.
Really?
They're trying to go for that next, yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny, but once the town's put all this money in over the next many years, it can then draw in the future, just like we're doing now, to offset the tax rate for those taxpayers in 37, 2038, and so forth. Like, the stabilization fund is for the town in the future to draw from.
So that's one thing,
So it's not like it's money that's going away, it's going into a savings account.
it's not, well, yes, but this is not this is Essex Regional's, pension fund. So we don't control that, but we're being assessed, so to get that pension fully funded. So this is an additional, assessment to us until until that pension is fully funded.
Got it.
Yeah, it's not like the OPEB that we control.
Got it.
Yeah,
Was the pension an ongoing thing, or did it end?
no, it doesn't end until somebody ends it.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so it's continuing, and so we have to continue, that's why they want you to overfund it, I guess, because
Yes,
it's just the liability will grow.
yes,
Yeah, but what happens in 2036? Was that the unfunded amount drops dramatically?
yes, because that's when we, become fully funded.
Okay,
So now what remains is just our regular assessment for their expenditures.
but they're talking about continuing to overfund.
To overfund it, so there's a little cushion there, yeah. You know.
That would be really nice, you know?
Yes, it won't be so nice when that goes away. Ah. Okay.
Want a motion?
Sure.
Motion, I mean, to go with $53,775 to support the special purpose pension liability stabilization fund.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
We'll do a motion to endorse the 53,775 for the pension stabilization from Rotherham.
Second. All in favor? Jim was a yay.
I'll do the rest.
It's another one with no sunset.
Article 11.
So that's the other side of the same coin here. Bring money in.
This is our own fund.
This is drawn from free cash.
Any questions? Like for
Make a motion to transfer from free cash to pension liability stabilization fund, or to endorse it, $131,586.
Third. All in favor?
Aye.
I said aye. There you go.
Okay.
Come on, guys.
So make a motion to.
Any questions on it first? Not, everybody good? Okay,
Okay, I make a motion to transfer from free cash the amount of $131,596 to the Pentucket Stabilization Fund.
Second.
all in favor?
Who was the second? That was Rick.
Jim?
I,
How do you know?
Okay, Article 12. Is to vote to transfer from available funds. This is for OPEB stabilization, 25.5.
And this amount was discussed last, 2 years ago. And so this will be the same amount, at least as long as its recommendations followed, for the next, 25 years.
This recommendation comes from the actuarial report.
Yes.
But again, if the retiree health insurance changes, this would change. But I don't know if we try to do that this cycle.
You, add something to it.
Yeah,
I think we would just wait until it's.
yeah.
Make a motion to transfer from free cash to the OPEB stabilization fund to endorse it again, $25,500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
FinCom?
Any questions? I make a motion to transfer from free cash $25,500 to the OPEB Stabilization Fund.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
I can do that one too.
Okay, Article 13 is a transfer of PFAS settlement funds. So the last time meeting, we set up the account, right, and now this is putting money into it.
So this was allowed by special legislation, so I don't think, this isn't a stabilization, this is an account reserved for appropriation. It still has to, any money being spent from it still has to go to town meeting for appropriation.
Oh, it does.
Yes, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know what PFAS is. I want it from this.
So these are the forever chemicals you've probably heard about on the radio or
Oh, okay.
paper. So there have been a lot of class action lawsuits. The town has signed on to those. And so we get proceeds for, and there's at least 6. I think there's like 7 now, maybe even 8.
Yeah, so it exceeded what I thought.
It's much, yeah, it's more money than we thought going in, but, so the town has signed on, we're a party to the class action, suing the, manufacturers of these PFAS systems that are now, everywhere, and they last forever, and they're not healthy. And the feds and the state are increasing or reducing the tolerance for what levels you can have of these in your public water systems down to like parts per billion. And that is driving a need for a lot of communities with public water systems to do very costly treatment systems. Groveland recently approved a system. Do you have, it was tens of millions, it was in the 20s.
Yeah, it's actually part per trillion. That's how, I mean, the analysis to detect at that low level
Wow.
is tricky, yeah.
And this money is being put aside for anything that
This
might
is
come
money
up.
that came in from the lawsuit,
Oh,
but
but-
we just put it in free cash.
Oh, okay.
So this was received in fiscal 25, it closed to free cash, and we're now, the select board has decided to put the monies into which is allowed by legislation now, into a special revenue fund. So anything received so far this year has gone into that fund, and now we're just gonna move this money that was received last
And
year.
any new funds will also go into it? You don't have to.
Yep, so this year so far has been 35,870, and this will add to that.
Because one thing that we considered is there's the old dump site over on Georgetown Road. There were studies done and some of the chemicals are leaching into well systems. So between testing and monitoring, who knows what the long side would be, it was like these funds should be used with that kind of thing in mind rather than just sitting in free cash.
Right. So is that gonna be labeled anywhere as the intent of these funds will be spent on something like that?
More than likely, but yeah, we'll need to vote at some point.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's town meeting, so, the language in the article request is from the, legislation, so you can read it's. If no restriction exists, which there was none in the settlement agreement, so it can be used for any legal purpose. But I think the decision was that they wanted to be used on really what it was for.
And so whether that ends up being water or health, where earlier in the budget presentation, the steel landfill monitoring is a significant cost to the operating budget that's gone up quite a bit, that you're absorbing in your tax rate in the Board of Health budget. So that once these funds are in here, the town could in the future choose to draw from this fund to offset those costs, for instance, or if there ends up being investments the town has to make to, because of the detection that's happened on neighboring properties to the landfill, this would be a potential source. So what's town meeting so it still needs to be appropriated?
it has to be appropriate.
Okay, so that would be a town meeting vote to put towards specific purposes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to endorse Article number 13, free cash to the PFAS Special Revenue Fund, sum of $16,021.
Second.
Yeah, all in favor?
All right.
Income? Make a motion to endorse the fund transfer from free cash to the PFAS Special Revenue Fund of $16,021.
Second. All in favor?
I,
I'll do that.
Thank you. No sunset on that one.
Okay. Article 14 is appropriation of PEG reserve of revenues.
So in this one, it occurred to me, oh no, I did put the activity in here. Oh, good, okay. So you can see the activity in this account the last several years. I have met with our AB vendor, Adam Stone, who's actually on this meeting now. He and I've been in touch a number of times. We met in person. And we both felt that the 40,000 appropriation continues to be more than enough. Anything that's not expended obviously stays in the PEG fund.
Is that what we've done in the past? It's 40.
Yep.
And again, other than the 1 year when they purchased equipment, it really doesn't even come
Right,
close.
right.
So it's not an authorization to spend, it's just the ability to,
Well, it is an authorization.
well, but not for anything specific at this point. Just
Right,
saying you can.
right. Right.
And you would sign off on that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and where we are, in negotiations with Verizon and soon after that Comcast, I think it's good to, show use of the money.
Yeah.
So we have, Adam's looking into costing out some improved cameras, and he's also looking into a potential alternate mic system for this room that would have like hanging mics that would do better. Yeah, so we are looking at putting it to good use, not like frivolously, but
No,
but
what,
to show more activity.
any thought to put it to the annex, improving the sound in there? I mean, we've tried to have hybrid meetings, it's been really challenging.
That's it, we haven't talked about that specifically, but we can look at that. That's a good idea.
So, do you want to just summarize the kinds of expenses these funds will be used for?
So the primary expense is for the recording and production and broadcasting of public meetings. There has been some discussion in the community, at least through the interwebs, of recording more meetings. And that's always an option. That does come with a certain cost and time. So under open meeting law, it really is the chair's call whether a meeting is gonna be recorded and, televised. So what you see in terms of the activity reflects the major boards that are always recorded, like the select board, the planning board. I know the select board has expressed its interest in the past, a number of times on different entities like the water commission. It'd be great to get those recorded. Ultimately, it's up to the chair. So if the chair chooses not to for one reason or another, that's really up to them. But that's been the major expense out of the PEG funds. We have used it for, obviously, equipment purchases. This, 11,200 FY24 was a server replacement. And we have also, for the last several years, set up a program, initially with the Cable Advisory Committee, but that committee doesn't exist anymore. But the program still exists where we will provide funding for public events that, with the intent that they would be broadcast and put out on local cable. So some of these speaker fees that you see were to bring people in to speak, and those would be recorded and put out on local cable. We've also got a film director, Timothy Friend, who grew up here in town, who's got a degree in film. He did a veterans film for us this fall that was terrific, and is doing right now a addendum to that, an additional veteran who hadn't been part of the recording. He's doing that. So we've talked about other different projects he could do, but it's a pretty flexible, source of money for production and broadcasting of public educational and governmental programming. So towns use it sometimes to televise local sports teams, local events. So it's something that if people in the community have ideas for things they'd like to see more programming in certain areas, just, send them to me or send them to the select board, and we do have funding to support those types of uses.
And the source of the revenue is a fee on your cable bill, so it's not town money at all. It's your money, not town money.
Significant amount of money in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than 50,000 or 60,000?
Yeah.
Usually spend it.
But I see the amounts that we're getting from that is going down. Is that because the split or the agreement has changed and it's?
Yes, yes, so we have two cable franchise agreements, one with each of the providers listed, and they specify the terms. So those are all negotiated, and I was here when the current agreements were negotiated with the former board, and the dynamics were twofold. One is they have a lot fewer subscribers because a lot of people are cutting the cord. So their revenues are going down, so they were kind of driving a harder bargain on what they were willing to contribute. And generally, so that there's a lag. Verizon is the one that comes up for renewal first, so we're actively engaged for them. Comcast is about a year after that. Comcast will agree to whatever Verizon agreed to, they won't agree to more. So where we need to set out kind of what our needs are, and then we use that to negotiate what we expect to get, so.
But you can see on a year-to-year basis, exclusive of the contract, just the number of users is going down as people stream. They don't use cable as much.
Right.
So it's just like cable reimbursement.
Yeah,
It's just through cable,
Verizon.
not through internet.
Yeah,
Correct, yeah.
yeah.
Where does that money sit?
It's in a dedicated account. There's a Mass General Law, chapter 44, section 53F and 3/4.
And then when you cut a check, you use that?
We get quarterly deposits from each of them,
Oh, great.
and they're received to that account. Under statute, the account is under the authority of the select board, unless the select board delegates that authority, and then they have delegated that to my office to oversee the use of the funds.
Are there any FY26 expenditures? There's that column ends at 25.
Yeah, I had Jenny run I asked Jenny to run a report through FY25. Yeah, she tracks this on a current basis, so yeah, we continue to, obviously, Adam, he's on here right now, and so that's the major expenses. I can't think we've had any speakers so far this fiscal year.
No, just
And Timothy Brett, yeah, Timothy with the Veterans Project in the fall. That was, we paid him about $5,000 for that work. So, but yeah, we could run an updated report, if you'd like.
Yeah, just to see what the 40,000 is proposed to be spent on, I guess.
Sure.
My question.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, if you wanna, table this one, that's fine, or I could just follow up, with supplemental information.
You ready for
I'm gonna vote it.
Yeah.
I make a motion to endorse Article 14, to appropriate $40,000 from the PEG access to cable-related fund for the purpose of funding FY 27 cable-related expenses.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Make a motion to fund, or excuse me, to endorse the appropriation of $40,000 for the egg reserve revenues.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
I can do that rationally.
I am gonna request that you pass over the next one without action on the revolving funds. Because I was looking more closely at some of the numbers specifically on the solid waste one, and I think it's significantly higher than it needs to be, so, Jenny and I would like a little more time to chew on that one.
Is there a sunset on that last thing?
No, the PEG is automatic, it's for next year,
Okay.
so, and this needs to be appropriated every spring.
So Dennis, do you want to keep going through these or, I don't know how long we plan to be here.
How do you guys,
I mean, I do want to discuss the reserve fund transfer request, so I just
okay.
want to gauge how, where you guys are at.
I had a text that was thinking probably 8:30, we want to discuss that, so, you guys okay with that?
Yeah, 8:30 works for me.
Okay, so should we keep going then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Article 16 is to rescind authorized unissued debt. This is the Church of Prospect Water main project.
It's just a matter of cleaning up the books for audit. Because right now it's authorized, we're not gonna use it, so it remains as a,
Okay.
yeah.
Motion?
Yeah, that's not a motion. You're the motion guy.
That sounded like a motion. Make a motion to rescind the authorized unissued debt for Article 16.
And just for those watching, it's $1,286,000 that would be rescinded.
Did you second this?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Make a motion to rescind the authorization of unissued debt. The $1.286 million.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, that's Gary, seconded, all in favor?
I,
Any volunteers?
I'll do that.
Okay, Article 17, this is the annual CPA article. The CPC did meet last night and approved this article. There's some blank spaces in the request. So these numbers might change, right, Jenny? This is a projection or are these actual numbers?
These are actually,
They are, okay. It's the same as it was last year, I think.
it's actually a little less, right? Yes. Did you update that?
I didn't do anything with it. I think Rebecca was working on
Oh,
it, so is it?
yeah, those numbers would change, I think. Do you happen to have the, estimated revenues in front of you? No,
Would that have been in the CP plan that we just,
um,
Should we table both of these?
let's table them just to make sure the numbers are correct, because I'm pretty sure I'm estimating that we will take in less money.
Okay.
All right, so 17 and 18, we'll have to bring back at a future meeting. Sorry about that.
Is the 760 amount, is that just a percentage of income coming in somewhere, or what's that?
So
based
part of it is, the surcharge on our taxes, but there's also 3 rounds of state matching in that, as well as interest, and so, primarily it's surcharge on tax bills. Department of tax.
Do you know what the rate is, the state match anymore?
It depends on how much revenue they collect. You know, when we first started doing it, well, 1 year we had 100% match,
remember the
but it's
first
been going down. I mean, I don't know if you can pull up that table from the CP plan online on the CPC's webpage.
They had less money, and also other towns did not too, because when we first started, I think.
There was participation,
Yeah.
not everybody was
Yeah,
participating.
the top. So that won't show this year, but if you can click on that, it's table 2,
Page 2.
table 2, go on. Right there. So you can see 2014 was 100% and it's in decline. But still, it's a couple $100,000, you know, in addition to what we.
It's all over the place too, isn't it?
Yeah, over 2022 is 96%.
Yeah, I think 90%.
So. All right,
We're not voting on this because it's. gonna
yeah, I
change?
think the
It
numbers.
sounds like yeah,
Those are a lot of big numbers.
yeah, I took what was in the server, but Jenny was out last week, so I didn't have a chance to review everything with her in person when I was putting that article.
Yeah, I mean, it's in detail. I think we all agree on the concept.
No,
but just
yeah.
make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get the numbers verified.
And then Article 35, I put that in just in case you don't approve the reserve fund transfer, so. Our preference is to go with the reserve fund transfer because then we could start the study right away.
And the amount of the requested reserve fund transfer is actually significantly less than what is in your packet. Because since that was reviewed by the board a week ago tonight, we have looked and we're comfortable that the select board could find $2,000 in its expense account. And I could find $8,000 in the town manager expense account, because there's a couple of things I had carried in the budget that a couple of conferences I didn't go to, and some outside staff management training that I didn't do. So we can come up with 20 of this 25. So it's a $5,000 request instead of the 15 that's in that.
So, I mean, we had talked yesterday about, I mean, the $25,000 request is, estimate is from one vendor that I talked to. I don't want to cut it too tight, you know, I don't know if there's any flexibility.
I would go tender and coach it.
Yeah,
The only problem is that once they transfer it, they can't transfer it back.
right.
So one thing, I think you and I talked yesterday, that maybe if the FinCom expressed support for an amount up to, and then once you had a specific vendor with a specific contract, you could come back and have them vote whatever the delta is. So whatever the contract costs minus the 20,000, we can find in the operating budget.
You could always just do twice, if we subscribe to the idea.
Oh,
We could
yeah,
come back and,
Yeah.
say I need another 5, and
We
Yeah.
could use the reserve transfer and then leave the money that's in the current budget and let that roll to free cash later.
Do any of those things.
Right. I'd rather just do it once and.
It's just, the only concern I have is that the reserve funds is, once it's,
Might be needed for something else.
yeah, once it's out, it's not there.
Yeah, we're at the end of pretty close to the end.
So any questions on the concept of the reassessment?
Do we think that the organizational assessment is gonna have any impact on the staffing budgets that are being proposed?
If we could do it quickly enough, I
Yeah,
think, but
okay.
you know, it would be pretty tight, and I think
Yeah.
we're turning around, but that was the intent.
Does this have any alignment with the step levels that were initiated a couple of years ago?
No, nothing to do with wages and classification. It's really to do with, you know, you hear a lot about bandwidth and capacity. And we know that because we live here and we work here and we really live here. And so we know that there's constraints on capacity, but I think, you know, and there's been a lot of discussion, do we need a project manager, do we need, you know, this and that, and I think having an outside independent management, company that specializes in municipal management, say, this is what you're staffed to do, this is what you are doing, is there a mismatch there, is it sustainable?
Or could you do this, combine these two departments and then you know, improve operations? And the other piece of it is, you know, we transitioned to the Town Manager Act and the Town Manager form of government, but I wouldn't say that that legislation is optimal for having a true town manager form of government. So we want to kind of see, where are we in the transition? What can we do to make this?
Mhm, mhm.
Why are you smiling, Gary?
Because that's kind of a Angus thing. I've heard that once or twice.
Yeah.
Only once or twice, that's good.
You know, you gotta behave when you're on TV.
But it is a concern. I mean, it makes operations less efficient, you know.
Well, there's all the independent boards and stuff, make
Yeah.
things a lot more challenging for him than if it were a more, you know, traditional organization chart.
And that's another piece of it, to look at our boards and committees and make sure we're all in alignment, so.
No,
I think it's
That's a
good-
big piece of what you put into the
Yeah.
description.
I agree.
I think it's a great idea. I would make the request for 10,000, and then if we don't use the town's funds, so we'll.
But we're taking out money from the reserve fund that nobody else can use, potentially.
Do you think we're gonna have the other piece of before the fiscal year is over?
So for the purpose of reserve fund,
There's 40 grand in it, right?
yeah. Well, how do you guys feel about it?
It never, it generally doesn't get touched. Last time we did it was when we needed, investigative.
I will say on the budget, you know, we did run the year to date through yesterday. And as I was keying all those in, there was nothing that stood out to me as being, we're not like, there's been prior years, we were like, you know, on track for, I mean, other than snow and ice.
Snow and ice and paving, but.
I just think this is such a critical component of what we've been missing. Yeah. It should get properly funded. I don't wanna get to the end and find out we're short $5 grand. I mean, it's the guys again.
Well, no, Jeff, that was.
No offense, Gary.
I think we would know in the next 3 to 4 weeks, you know, if we need more, but. Yeah, whatever, I mean, it's your thing, however you wanna manage it.
You'll know in 3 to 4 weeks, or we're still gonna be taking
I hope
votes
so.
in 3
I
to
mean, that's
4
the
weeks.
idea, is to get started right away.
So let's do the 5,000, and then, you know, we'll revise it or vote again if you need the extra.
Can you stomach another meeting? Maybe?
I think we have to, there's a life from people. Huh?
It's coming from the FinCom budget.
FinCom, yeah.
The reserve.
Reserve fund, yeah.
And is 40 left in the reserve, is that what I heard?
That's what was, I think that was.
Common balance.
50 in the current, so you'd be down to 45 remaining. If you,
FY 26.
in FY 26, it was,
50 left, it hasn't been touched yet.
that hadn't been touched.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nothing on the horizon, we know.
No,
Used to be bigger.
yeah, it was 60 when I started,
I think it was,
then it went
I
to
think it was
40.
like 80 my first.
Yeah, in the old days, it used to be like 80
80,
or
100.
100.
It was.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you typically use it for?
We typically did, there were like 2 times, I think there was a flare thing we needed at the landfill that we had to deal with, and then during COVID, there was a porta potty thing, the Parks
Oh,
Department.
that's right, yeah.
That was like completely out of control, we had to take care of that. But,
Players and porta potties.
porta potties, 5 years, those are the only 2
Wow.
things.
There was one
I'm okay with the
page
10.
for like one piece of equipment
Oh,
page in the kitchen.
Oh, the vegetable thing, and the one guy with kids at the school voted no.
I'm okay with the 10 now that I know there's 50, I thought there was 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just gonna,
Alter this,
think it's
or
just
just
gonna be
do
like
an
4.
inform,
Well, looks like they're doing.
Well, we're not doing
Transfer.
vote.
and, but it says.
Oh,
you can vote on it, but he's gotta work up.
Yeah, that was the original
The
estimate based
transfer
on
form,
us
we can vote on.
contributing, asking them to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, before we get signatures, we can
Just doing the form.
do it in form.
Okay,
Unless you wanna cross it out and initial it,
I can do that,
it's
but
whatever you think.
you guys comfortable with that?
Okay with that?
Yeah.
I don't wanna make you do any more work than you have to.
Alright, so the request is for 10.
When did you wanna resend this with the actual?
So, you guys vote?
Well, they are.
They don't vote, we only.
Yeah.
That'd be too easy if we got voted.
Any hard expense.
Just 900?
So-
Yeah.
We have to make a motion for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to endorse funding the organizational assessment with $10,000 from the FinCom Reserve Fund.
I second that.
All in favor?
I,
Okay.
All right, that's one article off the
I
warrant.
would say it's straight Article 35.
Thank you.
No, it's no election. You did fine.
All right, so then the next item, last item for you guys is, the process and schedule to review the budget warrant.
Oh, should transfer, replace that.
So that's already laid out, right?
Yeah.
We've been able to pin down all the.
Yep.
Okay,
Dates or process?
dates.
I'm gonna ask that because dates have been sliding a lot. I saw the paper, we previously had February 26th, that's gone.
Put it on there.
I'm just making sure because I don't wanna show up on the
Yeah,
dates.
well, you have a select board meeting on February 26th, but that was the
Oh,
date.
so that's staying.
they had.
I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah, you have a board meeting.
Oh.
That's just-
And March 12th is staying as select board then?
Correct. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then what about April 16th? That was gonna be the group meeting with the moderator, the FinCom and the select board.
That may be, we haven't set that date yet.
Okay, just when I'm scheduling, I look at what, okay.
Yeah,
Should they consider that as a candidate or we? You said put it in your calendar at one point.
so, let's see. This is, I think this kind of comes down to, I think April 16th is a good date. The FinCom booklet will have been out for a couple of days. I think that's a good time. You're talking about motion. I do know that the moderator sometimes feels that that meeting should take place before the warrant is posted. So if you want to do that,
Maybe we can do some, maybe some provide drafts, articles for the review.
yeah. I mean, I've been sending her everything I'm sending to FinCom.
Okay.
I'm also sending to Casey. Not every, but all the like publications, like schedule something, so. Yeah, but they do talking about. But we can, yeah, frankly, we don't normally firm up that date till later in the process, but we, you know, there's no reason we couldn't do it. I think April 16th makes sense, but,
Right. So anything else on the process and schedule that we don't talk about? We already talked about the approach to the budget.
yeah, I mean, you know, we had to squeeze a lot under some of these agendas. Cause we had a number of, members who, just the schedules were tougher than I've ever seen. So if some of these look crowded, they are kind of crowded. So that's where, you know, now this April 1st, I want everyone to keep that in your calendar in case needed. Dennis is not gonna be here, so that's not optimal. But, you know, I felt like we ought to have, you know, an extra date if needed, because typically it has been 5 meetings for the 6th. It's like the carryover. Here, we're really, if you don't count tonight's meeting, where it's really 4 meetings with a 5th as a spillover.
So if we're talking about one meeting to vote on all the budgets, when would that be?
Well, I think it would need to, in that scenario, I think you'd need this April 1st, which is, but Dennis is gonna be in France. So
Yeah.
that's not,
Yeah, I think, like, as Jim mentioned, I think everybody.
it's just, I'm telling you, the budget, the calendars are,
Yeah.
When are you back from France?
April 9th, April 10th, actually.
That would be too late for a booklet.
yeah, no, we pulled every single date between tonight and April 3rd, and there were only 4 dates that all 5 members could be there. And 3 of them were a single week, like it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of a single week, so that wasn't, so effectively there were like 2 dates that.
It's been rough.
It's been.
I did propose at least one day where we'd have 3 members. That's not optimal, but it's still, you know, we'd have a quorum.
None of these are 3 members. I didn't like that. So everything here, 4 or 5 members are available, but if we wanted to schedule a meeting with 3 members, we could. It was a brutal schedule.
No, I'm trying to think of if there's. How to do this and stay with the intent to vote on all of them in one.
And these agendas are really packed.
So will this be the typical like 2.5 hours? Is that, are you guys good for that?
I am, if you guys work good.
Gear myself up, yeah.
I went for an hour and a half.
I know you. All right, well, we're not gonna resolve that tonight, but I guess it's something to think about. And you and I can try to figure out how to make that happen.
Mhm.
I know I guess already put a lot of effort into
Yeah,
it.
Rebecca's been great, but we've got like a Venn diagram and it's.
So would it be in? This has already been made public, so if we change it, then that's.
Well, this last one, we, in prior cycles, we've reposted this, you know, sometimes twice. You know, if there's changes, there are changes.
My
But
thought
I
was
will say the departments, all of this, before I scheduled this, we pulled everyone's availability. So that's part of what's behind this too, in terms of the specific departments. So if we change dates, we'll have, you know, but there, some of these departments were available multiple nights, so we can change it. It's just, it's.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, one question, Angus, or on the Monday, March 16th date, the FinCom recommendation capital articles?
Yep.
What do you want from us for that? Is it just the recommendation?
So
of
on
capital
the,
articles?
yeah, so we'll need to make sure all the capital articles are reviewed by, between next Tuesday, when we have a handful, and the rest of those will need to be on the 4th. That's under the bylaws, the capital, recommendations need to be available 6 weeks prior to town meeting. So that's where that comes from.
So we're gonna try and do those next Tuesday or
And on the 4th, I think on Tuesday, we've got, we sent out the agenda today. There's, I think about half the capital articles, and then the rest we'll have to put on for March 4th.
So all the capital needs to be, even though a department might be coming in later than that, the capital part will have, we will have voted on.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
we've
that's
already met
just
it.
because it's in the bylaw. So in the old system, that would have been the CIC getting this report by that date.
Okay, and then the report, is there a format that we need to draft or what's?
Not for that. I mean,
What's
this,
the deliverable?
Set the stage, this is brand new, whatever you think is.
yeah, and I can send out, prior year, it's typically been a memo. But one thing that in terms of the end game, if I'm pulling up now a typical, the FinCom booklet, you'll recall there's like a 1-page or sometimes 2-page. Like this was the one from last spring's town meeting. It's basically a 1-page appendix, which they did rankings. You guys have talked about doing more ratings than rankings. But this is kind of the end game. But I write this based on what they did. So you might want to do it, and that'd be great if you did, but they've never done that. That's always me.
Okay. You'll probably want to keep writing it.
Well, they do a memo, and then it's a formatting issue, really.
Okay.
That's it, thank you, okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Jim wants to keep going.
All right, thanks everyone for your patience. I know it's a huge amount of information tonight, so I appreciate it.
Bye, Jim.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jim.
Bye-bye, everybody. See you next week.
Yep.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Turning to regular business.
I do, on the meeting as well.
Well, thank you so much. See you tomorrow.
Yes.
You only need this.
Thank God.
Okay.
Thanks.
You do? There's. Good night.
So we're on the discussion items. Discussion of item 7, state budget priorities. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, I was wondering if the whole website, ADA compliance one is a potential thing that we need help with. Budget, right? I mean, that would also help the visibility of that.
Yeah, it would. I haven't, put anything in the subject about that, so that would be a great one. One thing, I think we should change it a little bit from the past, because if you think back to the last several, we've often prioritized pedestrian safety. That's why we keep getting these earmarks. The earmarks turn into projects that need to be managed. So, if we want to take a break from that, we should ask for that. So, I think that's a good suggestion.
Anything first?
Looked at it and stared and did nothing.
Well, what do you think?
I mean, if you wanted to be,
Can you put
unanimous,
Hoffman in?
you could ask about engineering for water projects. They certainly need help.
Yeah.
And the state budget isn't general fund, enterprise fund, it's public money, so that would certainly give them a little shot in the arm.
So what kind of water projects? If we-
I would think engineering for future main replacements.
Very interesting.
Or potentially some kind of study of organizational structure
So
specific to,
regionalization maybe, or,
that's a nice thought. We don't need to get this, like, if you wanna chew on it, we just got the request last week, so
Yeah.
we've got a few weeks to chew on it.
No, but actually, I like that a lot, because they're talking about it, there's no mechanism for it, so that might be a catalyst to help with it.
and I mean, I think the regional aspect of it would be appealing to the state.
And it's something that realistically would only be funded locally if it came from the general fund, which isn't something that would sit well with a lot of people.
Mhm.
It's a great idea.
Anything else? I mean, is that good enough? Or do you want to think about them?
I think that's fine, I mean, you put them all in, or
Those
you
two,
prioritize.
I wouldn't put the pedestrian.
I agree with you.
But you lose the inertia, I mean, if they have this program where they're gonna roll you the money for pedestrian safety,
But it's not enough to cover it. It's just,
steep money, you know.
you're just taking a year off. You can ask for it next year. All right. All right, correspondence, future agenda items, so one thing that, I guess I'm not sure how to time this with the organizational assessment, but we kind of talked on and off about having a meeting with committees and trying to reaffirm what their role is and expectations, and I think that would be good. Also clarity on who is the, supervising entity, between boards and committees or the town manager.
If you're comfortable doing that, and I think you probably are, because I know you will, that's a good way to start. Once we get done with the organization assessment, we'll get a follow to what that is provided with further information.
You don't think we should wait till we get the organizational assessment and use that as a stepping off point?
You could, is it too late, I guess, or? And my comment tonight was talking about what put people on boards and committees to understand what the charges are and agree to that. This is sort of part of that same thing.
Mhm.
So, again, your call.
Yeah, I'm just thinking over the next month, I don't see myself having a lot of time, or any of us, having a lot of time.
Let's wait till after the organizational assessment.
Might be a good way to kick off the new fiscal year,
I want to throw an item out too, then for
okay,
future agenda. Maybe I shouldn't, maybe it'll stir stuff up, but I'm gonna anyways. We were at the meeting the other night with the Board of Health. And there's a group called Resettlement Partnership who's looking to do, as they phrase it, maybe 24 bedrooms in the St. James Rectory building. I think there should be a discussion. They're already at Board of Health. They're gonna have to, they've talked to Sam about zoning. I have concerns about what is legally allowed. I think a conversation should be had with the appropriate parties before it gets too far down the road.
You mean at the select board meeting? And
Somehow,
between the select board and the board of health or planning board, or with the
I would
requested?
say Sam would be, and possibly the people requesting would like to be involved too. I mean, before it gets too far down the road, there was a lot of questions. They were specifically looking at septic issues last night, I think or the other night. I think there are a lot of issues that they might not be seeing clearly, that
Mhm.
conversation in advance might be helpful. So,
What is the time frame? I mean, we have to.
we got time.
Well, just to add to that, I agree with you, Chris, and the Tuesday meeting was a much higher level of, like, it was much further along than I knew about, more than I've been.
They had attorneys and engineers.
Right, and so I got a significant submittal from the health department following the meeting. With a request to refer to legal, with a whole host of questions and a whole host of documents. And so that's gonna take some time for legal to review. I have my own concerns about perhaps the same ones you do in terms of zoning and so forth. Today, yesterday, it must have been yesterday, I got a call from the attorney. I didn't take the call. I was trying to stay focused on budget, but Rebecca fielded the call and she did, he said 10 minutes of time, and she said, and I said, look, if it's 10 minutes, you can find 10 minutes. So I have a call with the attorney now on Tuesday.
With their attorney?
With their attorney.
Okay.
I told Rebecca, if it's just with their attorney, I will have if it's a meeting with 7 people, I'm not, I gotta stay focused on budget. I got a lot of work to do. And next week I'm off, the school vacation week, so I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off to be with my daughter. So I only have one day next week, so if it's 10 minutes, I can do 10 minutes. So it may be, my point is, it may be moving quicker than we would choose.
Mhm.
So, well, I'll obviously keep you briefed on that.
Okay.
And I think Chris is right, like, if this came up quicker than I knew, which is a whole separate issue.
Yeah, and it's fully formed. I mean, like, just seems like it's moving pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, that department operates in pure independence, from anything to do with my office.
Mhm. Okay. So. So the other item I had is just the moderator review process. Just wondering if there's a way to. She said to me that in the past, she reviewed the warrant before it was posted, or, yeah, and apparently Jim said that he couldn't find any evidence of that, so I just wonder if there's a way to be responsive to that. 'Cause-
But I have no concern about that. I think the more people review the draft, I mean, well, I think having her review the draft warrant
Mhm.
is great.
Okay,
I mean, we need to be, realistic about when it's available. We don't even start drafting it till much later in the process, till we really know what the articles are.
Yeah.
And once we draft it, we send it to town council, so, she could review it before town council, she could review it concurrent with, well, I wouldn't do that, because then we have town council review it twice, so I would probably wanna have her review it before it goes to
yeah, that'd be
town
great.
council. And I've also been looking to transition more of that work to other staff, because when McCarron was here, he would draft the warrant. I would go through it, make my markups, and then it would go to council, or he was council, but my point is, he was doing the first draft of the warrant.
Mhm.
When Jim was here, he'd never written a warrant before, so I had him do the first draft, but it always needed a lot of work.
Mhm.
Same thing, with Amanda, she's worked more in the city form of government, or in Linfield, she wasn't doing that, so like this cycle, I had her do a draft. I did a lot of changes So I'm pretty hands-on with the warrant, so
Yeah.
it's, ends up being a bandwidth issue,
Right,
so
okay, but the,
I'm happy for her to
the
review.
concept of having her review it, so,
Of course,
Okay.
yeah, we wanna get it right,
Yeah.
so more eyes is helpful,
okay,
as long as they know when. and
Yeah. Sure.
Start asking for it
Deadlines.
next week.
yeah, okay. Good. All right, I move to go into executive session, citing MGL chapter 30A, section 21A2.
Second,
All in favor? Reed, aye.
while I, everyone vote aye.
Right, what is it? 8:42. All right, the board is recessing to executive session and will reconvene in open session for the sole purpose of the good night.